Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Raya. Thank you for the confirmation. All right. Okay. So we are at security testing, right? And it's one of the biggest fields in software. Okay. It's a field on its own, cybersecurity. All right. So before we start, right, how do you define cybersecurity? How would you define cybersecurity in your own words? Would you think it is important, and how is it relevant in today's digital world? So tell me in your own words, what do you think cybersecurity is? How do you define cybersecurity in your mind, and why do you think it's relevant? What do you think? Is cybersecurity just keeping about your devices safe, your data safe? What exactly is it? Valentina says protection in the web world, right? Essentially, yes, right? Essentially, yes, right? Protection in the web world, right? That is correct, Valentina. That is the crux of it. That is the crux of it. But it goes beyond that as well. You'll see in this lesson, it goes beyond that. Not just with the web, it goes beyond that. Okay, so we'll see that. And others, tell me, what do y'all think? See, we'll go through the details. We'll go through the details. But right now, I want to understand what is it that you think? What is cybersecurity? BB says protect my data, for example, antivirus. Yes, baby, right? Yeah, that's one way to look at it, right? That's one way to look at it. Like that's from where it starts, right? You'll see how it has expanded to much more things. Okay, but that's the crux of it, right? At the very bottom, it's how you can protect yourself, right? Using an antivirus, you protect your system. No one should hack into your system. They should not be able to collect your data or hold you hostage to your own data. Okay, Ines says internet security, security in the internet, right? Absolutely, Ines, right? Yeah, that is correct, right? That is correct, absolutely correct. Okay, from the internet, you want security, right? Absolutely. Okay, Vino says very essential for like online banking. Very well, right? Vino, very well said, right? Especially in financial transactions like the banking systems, it's very important to have your security in place. Okay, otherwise, hackers can take the money and they can do lots of shady stuff, right? So yeah, absolutely correct, right? Online banking, right? That is correct. Okay, and in today's world, we'll see, right? We'll see throughout this lesson how important is cybersecurity, and how it has evolved. All right. Okay. So look at this securing software, tale of defense, right? So imagine you are tasked with securing a treasure hidden in a castle. Okay. So imagine there's a castle, and you are tasked with securing the treasure. Okay. Now, what all can you do? You could either fortify the walls of the gates, right? You can fortify the walls, you can have gates, you can have key entry points, building a strong initial defense. Or you could send, so one thing you can do is you can fortify, right? So you have walls, you have gates, right? And you have key entry points, which are all very defensive, right? Now, or second thing you can do is you can send scouts to monitor the surrounding area. So you can send some people, you can send some scouts to monitor the entire area. Okay, and they can identify whether vulnerabilities are there, and like is there a gap or is there any hole somewhere from where an attacker can intrude, or strengthening the defense as new risks arise. All right, so these are two approaches that you take. Basically, one is fortification, where security measures are built at key stages, like a robust audit before launch, right? So those are fortifications. Okay, and then you have ongoing vigilance, right? This is how you sent your scouts, right? You sent your scouts to monitor the areas. Okay, so this is where security is continuously monitored and updated as the software evolves. So from software perspective, you keep monitoring it, you keep continuously seeing where your vulnerabilities are, and you keep enhancing it. Okay, so both strategies have their advantages. Fortification creates a strong defense upfront, but may miss emerging threats, right? So tomorrow there might be a threat, okay? While continuous vigilance adapts to new risk but requires constant attention. So these are the two ways, right? Two ways. One is fortification, and other one is you can have ongoing vigilance. All right. So in software, it's the same, right? Just as with the castle, thoughtful planning and execution are critical to safeguarding the valuable assets. Okay, so same thing with software, right? And especially in software testing, so you have, while planning, right, while the software is being built, at that stage, right, at that stage, while building and planning of the execution, it's critical to safeguard the valuable assets. What are your valuable assets? Your code, right, your data, and any critical files that you have, right? All those are valuable assets for you. Okay, so this lesson will introduce you to the fundamental concepts of security testing, helping you understand different methods for defending software against cyber threats and how you can defend them. All right. So basically, in this lesson, what we are going to delve into is the AAA framework. Okay, what is the AAA framework and how they are essential for managing who has access to what within a system, and we will cover security controls and best practices. We'll also start with the CIA triad, right? So we'll see one by one what CIA triad is. We'll look at the AAA framework, and then we'll look at security controls and the best practices that provide essential layers for protection of the software applications. What are the learning objectives of this lesson? We are basically looking at CIA triad, right? We'll be looking at what CIA triad is, the AAA framework, like I told you, and we'll identify the common security controls and best practices that help safeguard software applications. All right, these are the objectives that we have set for this lesson. Okay, so there's a disclaimer: this is a beginner level and introductory lesson. It's not expert level, so there's not too much deep diving into key aspects. Okay, so it's an introductory so that you have an overall understanding of what the entire cybersecurity landscape looks like. Okay, so let's get started with the lesson and understand how cybersecurity through the CI triad and common hack techniques. Okay, so cybersecurity basically encompasses all the people, processes, and technology developed and used to protect digital systems, networks, and data from various forms of threats. Okay, so this is how you define cybersecurity. It encompasses all the people, all the processes, right? Not just your device or not just your antivirus, right? It encompasses all the people, all the process, and the technology developed and used to protect digital systems, the networks, and data from various forms of threats. What can these threats be? These threats can be cyber attacks. It can be unauthorized access. It can be data breaches. Okay, there are several types of threats. We'll go into that. Securing yourself from those threats is what is basically cyber security. All right, securing yourself from different types of threats is what essentially is cyber security. Okay, so these includes techniques and best practices that are used to protect your privacy and information, such as protecting your data against unauthorized access and protecting devices from malicious cyber attacks. Okay, so protection of your personal information, privacy, finances, and digital assets from a wide range of cyber threats. That essentially is what cyber security is for, right? So, securing yourself from a range of cyber threats, right? This is the key point here: range of cyber threats. Okay, it's not just that someone is just hacking into your system, getting your data. No, there are multiple types of cyber threats, and securing from all of those is what is known as cyber security. All right. Okay. Okay, let's look at a real world example, right? To begin with, let's look at a real world example so that you can understand the importance or how essential is cybersecurity for us. Okay, in today's increasing interconnected and digitalized world, cybersecurity has continued to evolve and become a way of life, impacting individuals, businesses, and nations. Okay, it cybersecurity isn't simply a buzzword that has gotten a lot of press lately. It also represents a multi-billion-dollar issue, right? With FBI reporting $10.2 billion in total victim losses over the past 5 years. Can you imagine that? Over the last 5 years, $10.2 billion worth of losses. Okay, from victims, right? Victims could be anyone, right? Could be you and me. Okay, it could be the organizations, it could be the governments, any organization, right? And they're all victims to cyber threats. Okay, and therefore cybersecurity isn't just a simple buzzword, right? It is a multi-billion-dollar uh, industry, right? It's actually an industry. Okay, so as a result, the invention of the internet, which has led to globally interconnected networks of computers, introduces fresh opportunities for individuals to satisfy their curiosity, sometimes at the expense of other individuals. All right, so what happens is, so with the advent of internet and digital uh, age, has happened is all our devices are interconnected. Okay, so in your home also you must have multiple devices, right, which are all connected to each other, and across the globe, right, all these devices are connected, and it's not just mobile devices and laptops or PCs, right? It's not just those, right? There are more devices. Okay, any computation device. Let's say you're working on a machine. Okay, and you're in an industry, you're working on a machine, right, and which is automating the process. Okay, even that is computerized. So there are a lot of computerized machines. All right, and nowadays we have everything is smart. Okay, so you must have heard of the term IoT, which is Internet of Things. So any device which is smart, it can be connected to the internet, and it's not just about phones and laptops, right? So you're looking at all devices here. All right. Okay. So let's look at a story, right? Let's look at a story. The following is a story excerpt from Lacadria Smith's book titled Cyber Curiosity. All right. So it's a very interesting story. Beginner's Guide to Cybersecurity, which addresses the need for protecting yourself in the modern world. This guide breaks down various stories that increase your own cybersecurity awareness, such as the Morris Worm story. All right, so let's look at the Morris Worm story and what it is. Basically, this is Morris Worm, right? He's Morris Worm, and on November 2nd, right, November 2nd, 1988, Robert Morris, a Cornell University computer science graduate, hacked into an MIT computer system. Okay, and he changed the way we view the internet forever. Okay, why? What did he do? Is very interesting. Okay, so look at this. For months, right? For months, Morris had been developing a program. So he was a computer science student, right? And he was developing a program he believed would spread slowly and secretly across the internet. So he was writing a program like you'll have done Java, and you'll have seen, right, how you can write classes, you can write programs in Java. So similarly, he was writing a program, and he was expecting, right, he was believing that slowly it will spread across the internet, because the internet was uh, gaining popularity in those days. So he thought that this will spread across the internet. So he had written an experimental worm. Okay, what is a worm? A worm is basically it's kind of a virus, right? It's kind of a virus, but virus is required virus requires a human intervention for it to start affecting the system. So for example, if a virus comes into my system, I'll need to actually click on it, or I'll need to do some action for it to be activated. Okay, a worm on the other hand does not need any action by humans, right? It just comes into my system, then it can spread automatically, right? It'll do its business, whatever it wants to do, and then it can spread accordingly, right? My intervention is not required for it to get activated. That's what a worm is. Okay, so he had written this experimental worm, right? So he had written a code for a worm, which was a self-replicating program. Okay, so it would replicate itself, just to see, right? He just wanted to see whether it's possible or not. So he was curious, right? And his plan was to release the worm from MIT to disguise his identity as a Cornell student, because he was a Cornell student. He wanted to disguise himself, so he planned to release the worm from MIT. All right. Okay. Okay, Valentine says blue hat wrong, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. It's an interesting story. Okay. So what happened, right? So he had written and this experimental worm, and at around 8:30 p.m., right? So at around 8:30 p.m., Morris unleashed this worm, and he unleashed this worm from where? From MIT, right? Because he was a Cornell student. So he went to MIT, and from MIT he unleashed this worm. Okay. And soon after, he discovered the program was spreading far faster than he had even anticipated. So he was anticipating, expecting to spread slowly, right? It spreads to, let's say, 10 systems, 20 systems. Then after a few days, it'll spread to more systems. But apparently, there was a bug in his program, right? So his program was not properly made, and he had overlooked some aspects of it, right? So there was a bug in his program as well. Okay. So that worm, right? The computer worm spread at an extremely high speed, causing a slowdown in computer speed wherever it spread. So what the worm was doing, it was replicating itself. So for example, if it infected my system, it would replicate itself so much that my computer would slow down. That I'll not be able to, let's say, if I want to open a new tab, it'll be very slow for me. I want to open a new program, it'll be very slow for me, right? So that was the objective of the worm, right? And now it's spreaded very fast. So my device has been affected, the my colleague's device has been affected, another colleague's, right? Everyone, it's spreading very fast. Okay, that's what Morris did not anticipate, right? He did not expect that. He was expecting it to spread slowly. Okay, but it spread very fast, right? Much faster than he had even expected. Okay, so we are currently under attack, wrote a concerned University of California Berkeley student in an email later that night. So 8:30 p.m. 8:30 p.m. he had launched the attack, and later the same night, right? So the people had to say we are currently under attack. In the span of 24 hours, it is estimated that 6,000 of the 60,000 computers connected to the internet at that time had already been attacked. So imagine how much is that? That's already 10%, right? 6,000 from 60,000. So 10% of all the devices already attacked, right? And that was within a span of 24 hours only. Okay, so even though the worm didn't destroy or damage data, right, that was not the objective of Morris. He was not trying to damage the data inside your system, or he was not trying to do any malicious stuff. He was just experimenting, right? He was curious. He just wanted to see whether this program will spread across the internet or not, right? And it spread very fast. Okay, so it managed to do great harm productivity, right? It did not damage the data, but it managed to harm the productivity because it slowed down the systems. So your productivity and efficiency reduced a lot because everyone has slow systems right now. They cannot work at the efficiency that they were working earlier. Essential military and university systems were halted entirely, and mails were delayed for days, right? So imagine you're sending an email today and you expect the other side, right, to have received the email because that was normal, right? You send an email and you expect it to be received. Okay, but imagine for days they're not receiving the email. Okay, what would happen? And the military systems, right, the university systems, everything was affected. Okay, so technologists worked tirelessly to figure out how the worm functioned and how it could be removed. So you can imagine how impactful that small program was, right? How much of a headache it must have caused the technicians of those times. Okay, so given the nature of the attack, exact damages were difficult to estimate, but they range anywhere from 100,000 to millions of dollars. So at that time, right, in 1988, 100,000 to millions of dollars is huge. Okay, and immediately following the attack, so that is how the attack took place. And everyone was panicking, right? What is happening? And systems were down, everything was there, right? So Morris also understood, right? Morris also got to know from the news and everywhere that what is happening, that all the systems have stalled. And he was also in a panic, right? So immediately following the attack, what Morris did was Morris contacted two of his friends in panic, right? He contacted his friends and he admitted that he was responsible for launching the worm, but he never intended it to get so much out of control because it was not his intention. He didn't expect it to spread so fast, right? So that was never his intention. Like, he didn't expect that. So he admitted, right? So he contacted his friends and he admitted to his friends that, look, I have done this. I was trying to write this experimental code, but it has now gone out of hands. So he asked one of his friends to deliver an anonymous message from him across the internet. So he wanted to tell everyone that, look, how you can stop this, and he wanted to apologize. So he wanted to issue an apology and a guide on how to remove the worm, but he could not, for obvious reasons, disclose his identity, and he could not tell everyone who he was. Okay, so that's why he wanted to issue an apology and guide on how to remove the worm. So he asked his friend, right? He asked his friend to deliver the anonymous message across the internet. But unfortunately, because of the damage that the worm had done to the network, few people received the message in time, because by the time he contacted his friend, he asked them to deliver the anonymous message, it was too late, right? It was too late. And very few people received the message in time to remove the worm. Okay, so unknown to Morris, right? Another friend of his made an anonymous call to the New York Times. So his second friend, right, another friend, who did not tell Morris, but he made a call to the New York Times. And this friend, right, this friend blabbed to the reporter that he knows the person who's responsible for creating the program, but it was only meant to be a harmless experiment. So he told the New York Times reporter that, look, it was only meant to be a harmless experiment, and I know the person who has created this. The creator had no idea the extent of damage that would cause, and that its spread was due to an error. Okay, so it was the information gained from this call that would make the attack front page news. So it was the front page news, and across the globe, right? Everyone knew this. Okay, because the second friend contacted the New York Times. Now, what happened subsequently? The friend engaged in several follow up conversations with the reporter, and during one of the conversations, the friend accidentally referred to the creator of the worm by his initials RTM. Right, so the friend accidentally referred to the creator as RTM, okay, just casually, and this is where the reporter picked it up. The Times used that information to connect the dots and publicly confirm the identity of Robert Tapan Morris as the creator of the worm. Okay, so that is how they identified that. Okay, Morris was the creator behind the worm, and everyone knew his story. But it revealed, right? It revealed how deadly and how damaging a particular program could be, right? Just one program, and how damaging it can be. And that is from where the importance of security and cybersecurity started to grow. All right, so that is the story, right? That was a short excerpt and fun story, right? Very very interesting and real world story. Okay, fun fact, right? Fun fact. Do you know what is the full form of worm? Okay, if you have not seen it, right? Anyone knows what is the full form of worm? Anyone full form of worm? If you have not seen it on the screen. Okay, so it is actually an acronym, right? So worm is actually an acronym. It's not worm for worm, right? It's capital WORM. It stands for write once, read many. Okay, so you write it once and then it keeps reading. Okay, you read it many times. So once the program has been written, it reads many times, right? So just write once and read many, right? That is the short form of worm. It's not an actual worm or the physical worm that you understand, right? It's a short form. It's an acronym. All right. Okay, just a fun fact. All right. Okay, let's move on, right? So I hope you understand what is the importance of cybersecurity. That was the beginning, right? So that was the beginning of internet, and now it has been so complex. Okay, at that time, very few systems were connected to the internet, and now all devices, right? Every device is connected to the internet, and we have much more functions going on in different sectors and in different areas, right? With the internet. Okay. Valentina said, I love this triangle, right? Yeah, Valentina, yeah, this is the triad, right? This is the CIA triad. And mind you, this is not the CIA, the intelligence agency, right? It's not that CIA. This is different CIA. Okay. So the CIA triad is a fundamental concept in information security, and it consists of three principles, right? These are the three core principles that the CIA triad is upon, right? So C is what? C is for confidentiality, right? C is for confidentiality, I is for integrity, and A is for availability. Okay, so first let's look at confidentiality and look at the difference from integrity. Okay, so these three principles work together to provide a comprehensive framework for securing information and information systems. So it's like a framework, right? It guides you. You'll have done the frameworks in Java, right? We did the test-ng, and you must have done Selenium, right? So what this does is basically it gives you a comprehensive framework for security information and in the systems, right? So once you have a system, so you must have a guiding tool, right? You should have a guiding tool which will tell you that these aspects is what you should look at when you're trying to secure some system or when you're trying to secure some information, right? These are the three things that you should essentially look at. Okay, what are those three things? The CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay, the CI triad can be expanded depending on the specific security requirements and goals of an organization. So you can expand upon it, but these are the core, right? That's the core of it, right? Seraphim has shared a wonderful image, right, with the CIA. Thank you, Seraphim, for that. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All right, so you can look at this triangle, right? That is this confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is concerned with ensuring the right people have access to secure information and that the wrong people do not. Okay. So, what do you understand by confidentiality? What do you understand by confidentiality? Tell me, what do you understand by confidentiality? Privacy, right? Valentina says privacy, right? Exactly, right? Exactly, Valentina. That is correct, right? Privacy means what? If I have my data, right? If it's my data in my phone or in my laptop, right? It should be accessible only to me, right? It should be private to me. Okay, why? Because it's my data. Okay, so same way, right? Same way, you just expand upon it. Confidentiality is what? In terms of data, in terms of this confidence is ensuring that the right people have access to the secure information and that the wrong people do not. So what does that mean? That if I want to give you access to some data in my database, right, then you should have that access. And person B, if I do not give that access to person B, then he should not have the access. Okay, that is what confidentiality essentially means. Okay, that who should have the access. Okay, uh, we'll look at an example also, right? But before that, let's look at integrity. Okay, what is integrity? Integrity basically involves ensuring that the information or data has not been changed or corrupted. Maintaining data integrity means that you can rely on the data as a source of truth. Okay, it's important to understand the difference between these two, confidentiality and integrity. Availability is easy, right? But confidentiality, integrity. What is integrity now? Integrity is basically that the data is not corrupted, it's not changed, right? The integrity of the data is there, right? So if I am trying to access, right, so let's say I'm trying to access my data, right, and the integrity is in place means what? That no one else has changed it. Okay, any unauthorized access has not changed it. Okay, so confidentiality was what? So let's say if I have built a software, right, I've built a website, let's say I've built a banking website, right, it's a banking application, and I have the data, right? So I have the data. Now what is confidentiality? Confidentiality means only the user, let's say you are the user, right, and you want to log into your account, you want to check what is your bank balance. Okay, so when you are accessing, right, you can only access data about yourself. Okay, you cannot access data about someone else, right? That is confidentiality. Integrity means what? That the data that is saved, right, the data that is saved is actually true, that no one, so if let's say you are logging into your system, right, you're logging in and you're trying to access what is your balance, right, from the banking, you're trying to see what is your balance. Okay, it should be true, right? It should not be altered by some unauthorized access. Someone else has come in and altered that. That should not be the case. That is integrity. So the data is there, it should be true, right? That is the integrity of the data. Okay, so these are two things, right? These are two things that you should be very clear with, what is confidentiality and what is integrity. Is that clear? What is confidentiality and integrity? Anyone, any questions with that? Let me look at the live chat. Omri says the duty or obligation to keep certain information secret, right? Absolutely, Omri, that is correct, right? Absolutely correct. Okay, and it should be with more zero added. I wouldn't mind an integrity breach, right? Okay, yeah, the bank account, right? Yeah, yeah, good example, Valentina. Yeah. You wouldn't mind it, right? You wouldn't mind it, but the banking organization, right? So let's say if I have built the application, I will mind it, right? I will mind it because that is where the security is, my integrity, right? Integrity is being compromised, right? So that is the aspect. So my point of telling you is that now you should look at security in three aspects, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That is how you look at the system, right? And then you can build the securities in those three pillars. Okay, so confidentiality, how do you build your system in that? Integrity, you want to maintain integrity, how do you build your system in that? Then availability, third one is the availability. What is availability? Is the focus on maintaining access to information or data for any user who is authorized to access it. So if you're authorized to access it, then you can access it, right? And it should be available to you, ensuring 24/7 availability worldwide, irrespective of your geographic location, for all authorized user can become challenging rapidly. Okay, so while it may sound basic, right? While it may sound basic, but ensuring that availability 24/7 and across the globe for only authorized users, it can become challenging, right? So that is availability. Okay, so these are the three pillars, right? CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability for the CIA triad. Okay, Omri says availability is the assurance that data and services are up and running when users or organizations need them, right? Absolutely, Omri, absolutely, 100%, right? That is 100% correct, right? 100% spot on. And yes, exactly, right? Exactly. Uh, and yes, whenever the organizations need them, right? In fact, it should be 24/7, right? It should be not necessarily 24/7. If the organizations do not need it 24/7, then it's fine. But yeah, generally it's 24/7. Okay. So let's take a look, right, at the scenario to better understand how the CI triad translate into the real world, right? Now imagine, okay, imagine three people, right? Imagine three people. Let's say we have let's say Joanna and Jess, right? Let's say Omori, right? Let's say Omori, Valentina, and Enos, right? Let's say Omori, Valentina, and Enos, right? They work together at Big Corp. Okay, so Big Corp is a corporation. So Omori, Valentina, and Enos, they are working over there, right? And Omori is the owner of a Google Drive, right? So Omori has created a folder, right? So in his Google Drive, he's created a folder called Big Data. Okay, and that contains large amount of private big corp data. Okay, so big corp is the corporation for which you all are working, and it has large amount of private data. Okay, so now Omori shares the big data folder with Enos, right? With Enos and Valentina, okay, for their review. Okay, so he has shared the folder with Enos and Valentina for the review, right? So he grants Jess is Enos, right? So he grants Enos viewing privileges and assigns Valentina commenting privileges, right? So you have changed the privileges. So Enos has got viewing privileges, and Valentina has got commenting privileges. So Valentina can comment, and Enos can only view the documents. Okay, so Omri is the only one who has the editing privileges. Okay, so all the three, right? Enos, Valentina, and Omri are the only people who have access to that folder. Okay, so that is the system going on, right? Omri has the folder, and Enos, Valentina have access to it, right, with limited privileges. Now, what is confidentiality here, right? Confidentiality means that Omri, Enos, and Valentina can gain access to the folder. If someone else is able to access the folder, then confidentiality has been breached over here, right? So only these three people are able to access that folder. No one else apart from them should be able to access the folder, right? If anyone else, for example, if I am able to access the folder, then the confidentiality has been breached. Okay, so the confidentiality has been breached, and we need to look at that in place, right? We need to look at systems of how to keep confidentiality in place. Okay, integrity, right? What does integrity means in this scenario, right? Means that the files in the folder cannot be changed or edited without Omuri's permission, right? So without Omuri's permission, it cannot be changed or edited. Why? Because others, Valentina and Enos, only had the editing, right? Commenting privilege and viewing privilege, right? They didn't have the editing privilege. Okay, so only Omuri can edit the files, right? Without Omri's permission, the files cannot be edited. So no one can change the data. That is integrity. It cannot be changed without Omri's permission. Okay, and the data will be consistent, accurate, and reliable whenever it is accessed. Okay, but in case if someone else changes, for example, if somehow I have gained access and somehow I change it, okay, then that is loss of integrity, right? That is where integrity has been compromised, or for any reason the data has been changed without Omuri's permission. That is integrity has been compromised, right? I just want you to be clear with the difference between confidentiality and integrity. Right. Third is availability, means the folder should always be accessible, right? To let's say to Enos, right, for viewing, and to Valentina for commenting, as long as Omri does not change the access privileges. Okay, so this folder should be available for viewing and editing and commenting at all times. That is availability. If any of these functions are compromised, Big Corp's cybersecurity will be compromised based on the CIA triad model, right? So that is the CIA triad model, that if any of these three is compromised, that means the Big Corp's security, cybersecurity has been compromised, right? So this is the essence, right? It's like the pillars, right? These are the three pillars on which the entire cybersecurity of the organization stands on. Okay, so these functions are commonly compromised in situations such as ransomware, if you have a ransomware attack, if you have some data breaches, or if the account has been hijacked, right? For example, if Omuri's account has been hijacked, right? Let's say Omuri's Gmail account has been hijacked, then someone can access it, right? And they can change it. Okay, or you can have ransomware attacks, right? Or data breaches. Okay, so that is what CI triad is fundamentally, and understanding the CI triad will help you understand a comprehensive framework that addresses security concerns across the entire information ecosystem. This aligns perfectly with security plus domains like threats, vulnerability, and risk management. We look into those: what is threats, what are vulnerabilities, and what are risk management, and how managing access to the systems, data, and facilities is a big challenge for the company. Right, and each company has its own way of handling employee identities, which can lead to confusion and security gaps. Okay, For example, when someone is leaving a job, they might still have access to the systems, right? Potentially causing issues like deleting important files. So if someone has left the company, they still might have access, right? And it often happens because company use multiple systems, some with single sign-on and some without, right? Even with SSO, it would make things easier. It's not always implemented everywhere due to various reasons. For example, a warehouse manager might bring a new time tracking system without informing the IT security or the other departments, and that might lead to integration problems, right, and security risks. Okay, so basically that is what CI triad is, right? That is what forms the CI triad, and it's the cornerstone of cybersecurity principle, and it's how the entire cybersecurity of the particular organization is built upon, right? So that's why you should have clarity. So whenever now you look at cybersecurity, you should look at these three things, right? What is the confidentiality part, what is the integrity part, and what is the availability part? These three pillars is how you should look at them. Okay, and mastery of confidential integrity and availability principle enables security professionals to design robust security solutions. This is how they design robust security solutions and mitigate risk and effectively address security challenges in diverse environments. Right. So you as a software tester should be aware of this, right? That these are the pillars, and you can design your testing principles on this, right? So let's say you can design a test case to test the confidentiality part, right? You can design test case to look at the integrity, right? You can challenge the integrity. You can design test cases to challenge the availability, right? You can look at that. Okay, I hope you must have done performance testing, right? In performance testing, you must have used some tools to check whether how the websites are performing. Okay, so you can look at the availability part also. All right, so that is the CI triad, right? That is the CI triad, and what it stands for. Any questions, right? Any questions so far? Any questions on CI triad? Let me look at the live chat. Okay, give a thumbs up, right? Give a thumbs up if you've understood the CI triad absolutely clearly, and what is the difference between confidentiality and integrity. If that is absolutely clear, just let me know. Give me a thumbs up in the live chat. And if not, right, if not, if there's any question, then please post the question in the live chat. All right, Valentina gives a triangle, right? Okay, that's an interesting one. Valentina, nice GIF. Okay, Theodora gives a thumbs up, right? Great, awesome, awesome. Valentina, by the way, I'm assuming that's a thumbs up, right? Okay, Binu gives a thumbs up, right? Omrio gives a smiley, right? Yeah, Valentina says yes, right? Awesome, awesome. All right. Okay, perfect, perfect, right? Great. Okay, okay. Now let's look at another framework, right? It's known as the triple A framework. Okay, what is a triple A framework? So just as CIA turned out to be unrelated to the intelligence agency CIA that you have, if you've seen, you know what CIA is, right? It's the Central Investigating Agency. Okay, not that CIA, right? We are talking about the CIA triad right now. Okay. Similarly, the cybersecurity triple A has nothing to do with the roadside assistance, right? So triple A is also roadside assistance. This triple A has nothing to do with that, right? This triple A is a different framework. Okay, and what it stands for, right? What this triple A stands for. So first, it stands for is authentication. First A stands for authentication, which is the process of requiring you to prove who you say you are before allowing you access to some resource. Okay, so authentication is what? Authentication is that, tell me that if you are saying, right, if let's say Omri is saying that my name is Omri, I want to see some identity, right? Authenticate that you are Omri, right? So I want that authentication. Okay, so requiring to prove, right? Basically you want to prove you are who you say you are. So if I'm saying my name is Harshit, right, I need to prove it with an identity. Okay, so that is authentication. Okay, as opposed to authorization, right? What is authorization? Authorization is the provisioning of the correct level of access based on the user requesting access. Okay, so we look at the example, right? We look at the example, but understand authorization is what? Authorization is what am I now authorized to access. Okay, so for example, in the banking example that we took, right? So in the banking system, first you authenticate yourself, right? If you want to log into your account, you authenticate yourself. How do you authenticate? You give in your username, you give in your password, right? So your password is actually telling the system that this is the person who had actually registered with us in the beginning, right? Because they had registered with the same password, right? So this is the person who they say are they, right? So that is authentication, right? Once you have been authenticated, now what are you authorized to see? which part of my data are you authorized to see? Should I show you all the data? So if there's an admin, right, if there's an admin, they can see all the data. Okay, or if there's a data analyst, right, trying to analyze, so they can have access to some data, right? But if you are coming as a user, right, you are only authorized to view your data, right? The transactions that you have made, the bank balance that you have, right? So only the transactions that you have made, okay, and the statements, right? The bank statements of your only from your account, right? That is authorization. Basically, which part of the data are you authorized to access? So what is your authorization? Right, that is authorization. Okay, correct level of access based on the user, right? Who is the user and what access do they have, right? What authorization do they have? Okay, so let's look at an example, right? Let's look at an example. So let's say you want to go to the public library, right, to check out a book. So you're going to a library, public library, and you want to check out a book, right? You bring the book to the counter and you tell the librarian, right, that hey, I am Helen and I am a member of this public library and I would like to check out this book, right? So you're telling the librarian that look, my name is Helen and I'm a member of this public library and I would like to check out this book. Okay, the librarian asks to see your library card, right? So the librarian will say that show me your card, right? I can't believe, right? Anyone comes to me and says I'm Helen, I'll not believe that, right? So you have to show me your ID card. Okay, then only I will trust that okay, yes, you are Helen, that you say you are Helen and you have a proof, right? So that is how you can authenticate yourself. So you give the librarian your library card. That is what authenticates that you are in fact Helen, right? A member of this public library. So that is what authenticates you that yes, you are a member of this public library and your name is Helen, right? So that is authentication. Okay. Now what is authorization? In the same example above, right? You saw how your library card authorized you access, right? It authorized you access to the library book based on your membership card to the public library. Okay, so from your card, right, you authenticated yourself and now you were able to take the book. Why? Because you're authorized to take that book. Okay, but let's say you wanted to ask the librarian that can I go to the back room, right, where you sort the books to see if there are any book if I would like there, right? So there's a separate back room which is not available for everyone, right? It's not available for everyone. Okay, it's only for librarians and only for the officials. Okay, so now the librarian will say that no, you cannot, right? Although you are authorized to check out books, you can check out books, but you are not authorized to go to the back room, right, where the books are sorted. So you're not authorized to go to that room, that particular back room, right? Because that's not in your authorization. You are authorized to check out books and from the main area, right? But there's a back room, you're not authorized to go there, right? So this is where authorization comes into the picture, right? Authentication was what? Authentication was you proving that your name was Helen, right? That is, and that you are a member of this public library with your ID card, right? That was authentication. Now is authorization, that which area of the library you are authorized to access, right? What all can you do actually in the library, right? Like you cannot access the back room, okay, where the books are sorted. You cannot access that. Those are only for the librarians and authorized access that particular resources. Okay, and thus your authorization request is denied, right? So you cannot go to that back room, but you can check out books from other parts of the main library and you can take the books from there, right? So that is where you have authorized. Okay, so is that clear in your mind, right? What is authentication, what is authorization? Is that clear, right? Is that clear? Are these two principles clear? What is authorization, what is authentication? Quickly tell me, right? Quickly tell me, give me a thumbs up in the live chat if these two are clear. Okay, Binu gives a thumbs up, right? Valentina says, yep, right. Okay, okay, perfect, perfect. Perfect. BB gives a thumbs up, right? Okay, awesome. Okay, so quickly tell me, right? If I'm trying to log into my, let's say to my Facebook account, right? I'm trying to log into my Facebook account. I given my username and password. What am I trying to do? Am I trying to authenticate or am I trying to authorize myself? I'm trying to authorize myself or I'm trying to authenticate myself. Quickly tell me in the live chat what am I trying to do? Minu says authenticate, right? Absolutely, right? Minu, that is correct. 100% correct, right? You're trying to authenticate. You're trying to say who you are. How are you doing that? By your username and your password, right? Because you're giving the same password that you had given initially during the sign up. So during the sign up process, you had chosen a username, you had chosen your email ID, and you had chosen a password. You had created that password, right? So from that is how the system knows that this password belongs to you and you only. So only you should know this password, right? So whenever a user comes in with this username and this password, that means they're authenticating and they're proving that you are who you say you are, right? So that was authentication, right? Absolutely, absolutely correct. Okay. Omri says authorization is the process of determining what an authenticated user is allowed to do. Exactly, right? Omri, that is spot on, right? That is absolutely spot on. And that is, it's the process of determining what the authenticated user is allowed to do. Once you authenticate it, right? Once you authenticate it, let's say the Facebook example that I gave you, I log into the Facebook website, right, with my username password. I'm authenticating myself. Okay. Now, when I go into my Facebook profile, right, inside the homepage, right, what can I access? I cannot access things that I'm not authorized to. For example, I cannot see like how people are doing across the entire Facebook, right? What users are doing. For example, I cannot do some data analysis, right? I cannot do that analytics. Why? Because I'm not authorized to access entire data of everyone at Facebook, right? I cannot do that. Okay, I can only look at my post or the post with my friends, right? The friends that I have, what they have posted, I can only look at that. Okay, and maybe an explore feature where I can look at other things, but I cannot do some things that I'm not authorized to, right? So that is where authorization comes into the picture. Okay. Third thing, right? The third A of this AAA triple A framework is that accounting, right? Accounting, also sometimes referred to as auditing, right, is the third A in the model. As the name implies, accounting in cybersecurity requires keeping track of three things, right? So accounting means you're trying to keep track of something now. Okay. What these things are, that what the users are accessing, right? So what are the users trying to access when they are trying to access the information, right? When they are accessing this information, and a full accounting of everything the user does. Okay. So you are accounting. So let's say if I am accessing my Facebook, right? So what am I accessing? Am I accessing the home page? Am I accessing my profile page? Am I accessing, let's say, my DMs, right? What am I accessing? When am I accessing, right? When are these information being accessed? Okay, and a full accounting of everything that the user does on the website, right? So that is accounting, right? That is the third thing that is known as accounting. Okay, so first you have the authentication, then you have authorization inside what you're authorized to see, and the third is accounting. You account for everything that is being done, right? Why? Because tomorrow if there's a breach, right, tomorrow if there is a breach, then you can come to this accounting, right? You can look at your accounting and your audits, right? And then you can look at the logs and you can see what actually happened, right? Where the user was accessing and what he was accessing, what he was doing. Then you can look at and you can backtrack things from there. Okay, so that is accounting, right? So for example, in the library example that we had, right, so when you checked out the book at the public library and presented your library card to authenticate yourself as a legitimate library borrower, the librarian scanned your card into the system. The scanning process connects Helen's library card to the checkout book and registering the date and time that it was checked out. Okay, so once the librarian is checking your card out with the system, right, it's scanning your card and it's registering that you have checked this book out, right? Then you're basically registering, right? You're registering in the system that at this particular date and at this particular time, Helen had checked this book out, right? So this way, if the book becomes overdue tomorrow, right, the library can account for who was the last person in possession of the book, so uh, as to take the remediating action against them, right? So they can account, right? They can account that this is the last person who had taken the book, right? So you can always account. Why? Because you are doing accounting, so you're keeping records of what is happening, right? Who is checking out the book, what is happening, that is accounting. Okay, that is the third A of this AAA framework. Okay, so that is the AAA. Okay, so why do you think, right? Why are the CI triad and AAA models so vital to cybersecurity, right? As you saw, these are the frameworks, right? These are the frameworks. And what do I mean by frameworks? These are your guiding principles, right? These are the pillars on which you can build the cybersecurity, right? So based on these, so example, authentication, right? First was authentication. Now I can look at authentication. So when I'm designing, let's say I'm designing Facebook, right? If I'm designing the particular website, so first thing is I will look at authentication. So when there's a sign up form, when there's a login form, I will see how I enforce authentication, or what scripts do I need to write, how will I do that, right? How will I make sure that authentication is perfectly in place or not, right? If there's any breach or not in authentication. So I'm looking at only authentication. So you as a software tester, right, you can also target authentication, right? So when you're targeting authentication, you'll try to manipulate the system into gaining access. So let's say I'm trying to make some other username, and there's something known as SQL injection and other methods, right? Using which you can manipulate the password and you can gain access to the system, right? So those are the security testing that you need to do, that only the authenticated users are able to access that, right? That is authentication. Okay. The next thing, right, I will look at is authorization. So under authorization, I will see that, okay, if a user has logged into my website, now what all should I show him, right? So my other parts, right, other parts or other data should not be accessible, right? So how do I write scripts? How do I write my code, right? How do I write my software so that a particular user with a particular authorization has access to only those things that he or she should be able to have, right? So that is how you build your system. And third thing is the accounting, right? How do you create your scripts to account for what the user is doing? The user is logging in, user is checking out the DMs, right? The user is looking at the profile or sending friend requests, right? What the user is doing, how do I account that, right? So those are accounting. Okay, so this is how, right, CI and AAA model are so vital to cybersecurity, because they help you in building the entire cybersecurity. Because otherwise, see how you said in the beginning, right? Cybersecurity is what? It's just about securing your data, right? It's just about securing the system, right? With the antivirus or with anything, right? It's just about securing the data. If you look at it just from the perspective of securing your data, you might miss out on some factors. But now if you look at it as triple A, right, or if you look at it as CIA, right, then you can target those, right? Now you can focus on, let's say, C, right, confidentiality. You can focus on integrity. You can focus on authorization. You can focus on authentication, right? You can focus on availability, right? Like that, you can focus on those things. Okay, and that is what is the framework for, right? All right, okay, let's move forward, right? Let's move forward. What are risk, threats, and vulnerabilities, right? Okay, first tell me, right, what is a threat, right? What do you think is a threat and what is a vulnerability? So according to you, tell me, what is the difference between a threat and a vulnerability, right? It's a common term, we often hear them, threats and vulnerabilities. So tell me, according to you, what is a threat, what is a vulnerability? According to you, what do you think is a threat and what is a vulnerability? Try, take a guess, right? Take a guess. What is a threat, right? According to you, what is a threat and what is a vulnerability? Or either of those, right? Anyone, right? Anyone. Valentina says threat is a danger. Okay, yes, Valentina. Threat is a danger, right? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Threats are very dangerous. Absolutely. Something already ongoing, probably. Not exactly, right? It's not exactly that's ongoing. Not necessary, right? That's ongoing. Theodora says vulnerability is a weakness, right? Yes, Theodora, that is correct, right? Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Vulnerability is a weakness. Okay. Valenti says vulnerability is less harming than threat. No, Valentina, not exactly, right? Not exactly like that. Okay. Susan says a threat is a potential actor or event that can cause harm, while vulnerability is a weakness that the threat can exploit to produce an impact. Absolutely right, Susan. That is very concisely and very spot on, right? Very spot on. Absolutely right. Absolutely correct, Susan. Okay. So the thing is, right? See, what Susan is saying is that basically, what is a vulnerability? A vulnerability is a weakness. So, for example, let's say the Facebook example that we were talking about, right? So I am designing the authenticating part of it, the login system, right? I'm designing that, I'm writing my code. Okay. So somewhere in that code, I have made some mistakes, right? Or there are some bugs, right? So there are some bugs according to which I am not checking correctly, right? I'm not checking correctly that the username and password is of the same person, right? I'm not checking that correctly. Okay. So that would allow others also to, with a different password, they are able to access the same username. For example, if the username is Harshit and someone else with another password, they can still log in, right? So there's some weakness in my code, right? So my script is vulnerable. Okay, so that is vulnerability. But no one yet has hacked into my account. They have not exploited this vulnerability yet, right? No one has done that. Okay, no one has exploited. They've not gained access to my account. Nothing has happened. Okay, but that is still a vulnerability. It's like a window, right? It's like a window in your house, right, which is open. Okay, it's like a window in your house which is open, and attackers or intruders can come from there, right? So it's a, or let's say it's a glass window which can be broken, right? And intruders can come from there. Okay, and so that is a vulnerability, right? But no one has come yet, right? No one has intruded your house yet. No one has hacked into my account. No one has gained access to my account yet, right? It's just a vulnerability. That's a vulnerability. It's a weakness in the system. Okay. Now, threat is when that vulnerability has been exploited. If someone has exploited that and they have gained access to my account, right? Or they have smashed the window and or from the open window in your house, they have managed to gain access, right? Or they've managed to gain insight into your house, right? Now that is a threat. That is what a threat is. If they've gained unauthorized access, right? That is what a threat is. Okay, and the weakness that was exploited is the vulnerability. What is the weakness in the system that the threat is trying to exploit is the vulnerability, and the threat is the actual thing that happened. Okay, so Susan has very concisely put, right, a threat is a potential actor or event that causes the harm. Okay, while the vulnerability is a weakness that can that the threat can exploit. Okay, so that is the difference, right? That is the difference I want you to be clear of. Okay, so what is a threat? A threat refers to any potential danger or harmful event, right, that can exploit a vulnerability. So the event or potential danger that can exploit a vulnerability, that is the threat. Okay, it could be a malicious actor, a piece of malware. What is malware? See, malware comes from software, right? Software is good, and a malicious software is basically what is known as malware, right? It comes from two words, malicious and software, right? That is a malware. It's just a software, but the intention of the software is not good, right? So the person who was designing the software, the person's intention was not good, malicious, right? So that's what that was a malware is. Okay, so it could be a malicious actor, a piece of malware, a natural disaster, or any circumstance that has the potential to cause harm. For example, hackers attempting to gain unauthorized access to a system, malware infections, or physical break-ins are all considered threats, right? So hackers are trying to gain unauthorized access to systems, right? Let's say to the banking system or to any other system, let's say to my account in Facebook, right? Or any system, right? Gaining that access, that is a threat. Okay, but how are they gaining the access? They're exploiting a potential vulnerability, right? That vulnerability was there in the system, they're exploiting that. So what is a vulnerability? It's a weakness or gap in the system security posture that could be exploited by the threat. It's a flaw or an oversight, right? So let's say while I was doing the code of the login functionality, I made an oversight or a flaw, right? That allowed the attacker to compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of a system or data. Okay, that is a vulnerability. Okay, so example, unpatched software or misconfigured permissions or weak passwords or lack of encryption are common vulnerabilities that attackers always exploit. All right, now what is a risk? So what is a risk now? So tell me, what is a risk, right? What is a risk according to you? What do you think a risk is? Tell me in the live chat. Now you know what a vulnerability is, what is a threat, right? And anyone, any questions, right? See these key terms, right? These key terms is you should know the difference between them, because this is where they play with, right? Especially in ISTQB exam also, right? When you will be looking at the exam, these keywords, right? These keywords are very important, right? So and they'll give you options which are very similar, and you might get confused between what is a threat and vulnerability, right? So don't do that, right? Don't do that. Okay, and if you're clear with what is a threat, what is a vulnerability, so vulnerability is the weakness and the threat is what exploits that. Okay, so be clear with that. And what is a risk, right? What are risks? What are risks? Oh, so Seraphim has already posted that. Oh, okay, Seraphim, thank you, right? Thank you for that, right? Okay, yeah. Ina says a risk is a chance that something could go bad, right? Exactly, right? Exactly, right? So yeah, now put these two things together, right? So vulnerability was the gap, right? Was the weakness, and threat is that the attacker is exploiting that weakness. Okay, so the chances of what are the chances that the attacker can exploit this vulnerability? That is your risk. Okay, it's the likelihood or the probability, right? Probability that a threat will exploit a particular vulnerability. Okay, so if there is no chance an attacker will exploit that vulnerability, then it's a 0% risk. Okay, so even though the vulnerability is there, for example, in your home, you have that window, right? That open window is there. Okay, but outside that window, it's let's say it's an extremely dangerous area, or let's say it's a very let's say it's um, it's something from where an attacker cannot come, right? So you are sure that no one can come from here, right? No one can come from this particular window, right? So then your risk is what? Your risk is zero, right? The risk is zero. Why? Because even though the vulnerability is there, that vulnerability is still there, okay? But your risk is zero. Why? Because the probability of someone getting in through that window is zero, right? Because you know no one can come from here. Okay, so that is risk. Okay, the likelihood or probability that a threat will exploit a vulnerability leading to harm or damage to the organization's assets, systems, or data. Its potential impact or loss resulting from the intersection of threat exploiting a vulnerability. That is risk. For example, the risk of a data breach occurring due to vulnerability in a poorly secured database is the combination of the likelihood of an attacker attempting to exploit it, that's a threat, and the ease with which they can exploit the vulnerability. Okay, so what exactly is the vulnerability and how the attackers attempting to exploit it. Okay, now phishing, right? What is phishing? Okay, before moving to phishing, right, we'll take a break, right? We'll take a quick break here of 10 minutes and we'll come back, right? We'll come back to some interesting phishing examples. All right. Okay, so we'll take a break here. I'm stopping here for 10 minutes. Yeah. Thank you, Raya. And congratulations, Enos. You won. I'm still waiting for my chance to win, right? Since two batches. But one day, right? One day I'll definitely win. Okay. So yeah, okay, quickly give me a thumbs up, right? If you can see my screen, just give me a thumbs up if screen is visible. And let's continue with this. All right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Okay. So what we talked about risks, what are threats, what are vulnerabilities. Okay. Now look at an example, right? Phishing. Okay. What is phishing? This is not your typical phishing with F. Okay. This is phishing, right? This phishing is basically, it's a cyber threat, right? It's a cyber threat. What it does is it basically emulates a particular website or anything to look like something else. Okay. So it tricks you into believing that this is the authenticated website. Okay, but actually it is not. For example, if I create a clone of Facebook, right, and the website name is, let's say, facebook.com, but with let's say FACEE, okay, and then BOOK. Okay, so that's a different domain name, right? And I can take that domain name. Okay, and I can create a website exactly looking like that, right? Exact replica. Okay, so and I send you a link to that, right? I send you a link to that. When you open it, you will feel that, oh, I'm on facebook.com, right? And you will type in your username, you type in your password, but in fact what happens when you click on login, that data comes to me, right? That essentially is what phishing is. Basically something is being presented to you looking like something else, right? But it's actually not that authenticated or actual website, right? So that threat is, right, that is a cyber threat which is known as phishing, and it aims to deceive individuals into providing sensitive information such as usernames and passwords by masquerading as trustworthy entities. If you lack awareness of phishing tactics or don't have adequate security measures in place, you become vulnerable to these deceptive attacks. For instance, falling for a phishing email can lead to unauthorized access to your personal or organizational data, right? So even emails, right? Even in emails, you have these phishing attacks. Okay, and they're very risky, right? And the risk associated with phishing lies in the potential consequences of a successful attack. This could include data breaches, financial losses, and reputational damage to both individuals and organizations. Okay, we'll look at an example, right? We'll look at an example. I'll show you. This is an interesting quiz, right? You all should take this, right? The link is here of this phishing quiz, right? You all should take this whenever you get time. Okay, I'll show you a couple of examples from this, but when you have time, take the entire one, right? Take the entire one. Okay, so what we do is you click on this take quiz over here. Okay, and you can type in name anything, right? Let's say test. Okay, and you can say test at the rate, let's say 123.com, right? Any email you can provide. Not, you don't have to provide your own email. Okay, and it's not yet started. Okay, and we click on get started, right? So let's look at this. Okay, so it says let's start with this Google document email, right? So an email has been sent to you about Google document, and what that is, this is the email, right? This is what the email looks like. And what do you think, is this legitimate, right? Do you think this is legitimate, or do you think this is phishing? Okay, so you need to choose from here, right? Either you choose phishing or is it legitimate. Okay, so email like this has come to you, right, in your inbox. An email like this has come to your inbox, says Luke Johnson has shared a document with you. right? And Luke Johnson, luke.jason8000 at gmail.com has invited you to edit the following document. And this is the document, right? You can click on this to open it. And this is the document. This is the email, right? This is the entire email. Okay. So by looking at this, right? By looking at this, should I click on open or should I not click on open, right? So that is the essence. Okay. Is this phishing, right? What do you think? Is this phishing or is this not, right? Susan says hover over links to make visible, right? Yeah, absolutely, Susan. That is why I've hovered over this, right, for your uh, visibility, right? Valentina is fishing, right? I don't know you, Luke, right? Yeah, Valentina, right? Yeah, yeah. That's a point, right? Good point. Don't accept links from people whom you don't know, right? That's a great point, Valentina. It's equally important to be socially aware, right? So that social aspect is also there, right? So only the people whom you know or you trust with, right? If you've never worked with Luke Johnson or you don't know who Luke Johnson is in your, let's say, colleagues, right? Don't accept this. Okay, absolutely. Okay, but yeah, Susan was also very much spot on, right? To point out that you should hover over this, right? See, if I hover over this link, right? If you just hover over this link, you'll see at the bottom, right? You see the link. Where this lead me? It will lead me to drive dash google on. Look at over here, right? So at this space, right, where my mouse is, when I'm dragging my mouse, right, look at that space. Okay, you see the link over there, right? Drive dash google.com slash d slash this, right? So it looks authentic. It looks authentic, but actually Google does not have this domain. Drive-google.com is not a domain by Google, right? So any documents that you share, if you share a legitimate document, look at the link of that, right? It'll never be drive-google.com, right? It'll not be that. Okay, so this is suspicious, right? This is suspicious. So someone else has created this website, drive-google.com. It's created by someone else, not by Google. Okay, and they are, if you click on this link, it will take you to that website, right, to that particular link, and that might have potential attacking chances. Okay, so therefore this is a phishing, right? This is a phishing. Okay, more things you should see is look at the email address, right? Look, luke.jason8000 at gmail.com looks correct, right? Looks correct. Okay, so these are the things that you can look at. So this is phishing, right? So show me, right? So it will also show you, right? It'll show you why it's a phishing. It says drive-google.com, and let's take a look at the next example. Okay, like this, I want you to take all the 10 questions, right? There are 10 questions over here. We are doing question number 2 out of 10, right? I'm just showing you a couple of examples, but I want you to take all the 10, right? It's very good for your understanding and to look at the various ways. Okay, so yeah, now see, this email has come to you, right? Free blender is a pretty good survey incentive, right? So this email has come to you from Coca-Cola, right? And it says Coca-Cola, answer and win a brand new portable blender and juicer. Okay, so you have been chosen to participate in our loyalty program for free, right? It will take you only a minute to receive this fantastic price. Get started now. Click on this to get started. Okay, so that is the email, right? That is the email. What do you think is this? I'll hover over this link also, right? This is the link. Okay, what do you think it is? Is it phishing or is it legitimate? Okay, Susan says fishing, right? Valenty says sure, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely correct, right? And Susan, that was, you were correct to point out, right? This looks very fishy, right? So anytime you look at an email ID such as this, okay, so it looks suspicious. Okay, so always be aware, right? This is suspicious. This is if it was actually from Coca-Cola.com, it would be from Coca-Cola, right? The authentic company. They would have their own domain name, right? Like in Gmail, you have @gmail.com, right? Facebook will @facebook.com. So it'll be @coca-cola.com, right? Should be @coca-cola.com, not @this.com, right? Should not be that. Okay, that is what tells you about authenticity, right? From where it is coming. Second thing is, you look at the everything is there in the image, right? All the text, right? That click here, get started, right? Free, everything is there inside the image. There's no text. Okay, this text is actually a part of the image. So if you look at this entire thing is the image, right? There's no separate text in the email. Okay, and that is also suspicious. Why? Because attackers try to hide this, right? Because see, Google or Gmail, right? They're able to scan through text, right? But scanning through an image is difficult for them. Okay, so to try to masquerade them, right? They'll try to make the image. Okay, and third thing is the link, right? The link also, you can see, is such a big link, right? It's a huge link, and it is obviously um, not authentic, right? It appears to be redirecting from multiple spaces, right? So yeah, it's not it's phishing, right? It's definitely phishing. Okay, so yeah, that's correct. Again, you can click on show me. It'll show you the reasons why it's a phishing, right? This email ID and about the text, right, and about the link. So you can see this. Okay, let's look at one more example, right? Last example, I'll just look at three. Okay, and the remaining you can do on your own later on. All right. Okay. So look at this email, right? You've received this email from PayPal, right? It's PayPal and says, here's your invoice, right? Billing department sent you an invoice for this much. Do you want receipt, right? There's the invoice details, and this is the link to view and pay your invoice. I'll hover over this link also for you, and you can look at this above part also, the email ID from where it has been received. Okay. And I'll hover over this for you, right? What do you think? Is this legitimate? Is it phishing, right? Tell me right now. I want everyone, right? Everyone's response. Legit. Okay. Uh, Valentin says seems legit, right? Okay, Minu says legit, right? Okay, others. Ina says test other 123 is not addressing you by name. It is actually right. Ina, it is actually because while in the beginning, right, I chose my name as test and my email as test at the rate 123.com, right? So that is the email ID I gave, right? So this will actually be replaced with whatever email ID you have, right? So if you had given, let's say, ines at the rate gmail.com, this would have come there, right? So don't worry about this part. Okay. Apart from that, right? Apart from that, what do you think? Is it fishy or is it legitimate, right? What do you think? Susan says fishy, right? Others, what do you think? Is it fishy, legitimate? Okay, so far we have Valentina Binu for legitimate, right? Valentina says, even if I never received an invoice from PayPal, right? Yeah, don't worry about that, right? Valentina, imagine if you're working, right? You're working and you're receiving an invoice from PayPal, right? So, yeah, in that scenario, right? It's just appearing. Okay, so in that case, does this email look suspicious or does it look legitimate, right? Ines is legitimate, right? Bibi says, please don't scare me. I received some emails like this from PayPal, right? Bibi, it's not about scaring, right? It's not about scaring, and it's about to awareness, right? It's about awareness, and you'll see later in the lesson, right? Awareness is a key part, right? And awareness should always be there, okay, so that you don't risk this, right? When it says there are also contacts, right? Seems legit, right? Yeah, seems legit, right? Seems legit. Why? Because you have the service at paypal.com over here, and if you hover over this link, right, it goes to paypal.com/invoice. So it's also going to PayPal, right? Clicking on the link is also going to PayPal. Absolutely correct, right? But Susan pointed a very interesting point, right? Susan had pointed out above. I ignored that part of the chat because that was the cracks, right? Susan, you got the cracks. Your eye for the detail, right? Susan, very well, right? Very well. Very good eye for the detail, right? It says note from the seller in an invoice, right? Exactly, Susan, right? There's a note from the seller, which is warning, right? It's not about your account, right? So it says it's a note from the seller. So there's some seller, right? There's some seller. It's a note from the seller. So PayPal is telling you it's actually an email from PayPal. Right? It's actually an email from PayPal, but some seller has sent you, right? And the seller is giving you this note that hey, the note is what there is evidence that your PayPal account has been accessed unlawfully. 600 has been debited from your account for an e-gift card purpose. This transaction will appear in your PayPal activity within 24 hours. If you do not recognize this transaction, immediately contact us using the free phone number at this, right? So everything looks legit, right? It looks legit and looks from PayPal because it's actually from PayPal, right? A seller is sending this from PayPal, okay, and the seller generally sends you about the invoice, right? That hey, you purchased, let's say, a laptop from me, right? So this is the invoice for the laptop or something of that note, right? Whatever the seller wants to give the note. So this is actually not a piece of text from PayPal. This paragraph is not from PayPal. It's a note from the seller, right? And in that note they have added this, that a gift card has been purchased, right, from your account, and within 24 hours if you want to stop it, just call this number, right? And we are available from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time, Monday to Friday, right? This is the invoice number, right? And they've given you this number. So any panicking person who feels that this is legit will call at this number, and thereafter the hackers will continue with the game, right? So that's what this should be aware of, right? So this note from the seller, Susan, very well pointed out, right? Very well pointed out. And well, it says I didn't get it right. uh, But now did you get it, Valentina? Now did you get it, right? This is basically, see, when PayPal, right? Let's say we are using PayPal. Let's say I'm selling something, right? And I'm using PayPal, okay? And you want to, let's say you want to buy something from me, right? I'm legitimate, okay? I'm a legitimate seller. And let's say you want to buy a laptop from me, right? You want to buy a laptop from me. So I will send you this detail, right? I'll send you this particular details with the invoice, right? That the amount I'm requesting from you for the laptop, right? If I want to sell you the laptop, I'm requesting an amount of $600. And in the note from seller, right? So while I'm filling the form in PayPal, right? While I'm filling the form in PayPal, that hey, I want to send this to valentina@gmail.com. I want to request an amount of $600, and I want to send the following note. What note I want to send? Hey Valentina, this is the amount you have to pay for purchasing the laptop, right? That note I can type in over there. Okay. And if I click on send, then what will PayPal do? Then PayPal will send that request to you. So to your email that will come from PayPal, right? So PayPal is actually giving you that email, and in that email, what will be written? That hey, this person, right? I have requested an amount of $600. What is the note that I have given you? That hey, this is the amount you need to pay for the laptop, right? And this is your invoice, right? Receipt details, and then you click on it, you pay, right? I get the money, right? And then you'll get the laptop, right? I'll deliver it to you. Okay, so that's the legitimate business. Okay, now how they have tweaked it, right? So if let's say I'm a malicious attacker, okay, so in the same note, right, in the note where I had to actually write a note for you, I'm writing this malicious stuff, right? That hey, PayPal has your PayPal account has been accessed unlawfully, right? 600 has been debited from your account, right? For an e-gift card purchase. If you want to stop this, right, within 24 hours, if you want to stop this, call this number, right? So this is the note from me, right? Not from PayPal. Okay, does that make sense, right? But does that make sense? Valentin says, but you if you click right redirect to PayPal, that is legit, right? Yeah, absolutely, right, Valentin, absolutely. This link is legit, right? Link is not the problem, right? Link is not the problem. This text is the problem. Text is the problem, right? This number is the problem. Okay, this number is where the problem is. Okay, so if you call on this number, right, or sometimes they might give an email ID, or they can give a link also over here, right? That click on this link to this, right, or anything, right? So that's how the attackers play, right? That is the fishy part. All right. Okay. Right, exactly, right. Valentine says issues with the phone, right? Not the link. Absolutely, right? Absolutely correct, right? Exactly, right? So this note, right? What we are writing inside the note. So this is also a type of attack, right? Like I am using PayPal's services, right? Because PayPal will actually send you the email, right? So I'm trying to use that service and trying to masquerade myself inside it, right? Or trying to attack from inside that, right? So that is the crux of this, right? So again, it's just for awareness, right? And how you should be aware of this. So it's phishing again, okay, and it will show you, right? You'll see the answers. All right, so like this, similarly, right, similarly, know this, right? Go through all the 10 questions that you have in this. Okay, I just took three, right? So we'll move forward, right? So that is phishing, right? That is phishing. It's a fun exercise, right, for awareness. Okay, so in summary, right, a threat is a potential danger or a harmful event. A vulnerability is a weakness or gap in security that could be exploited by threats, and a risk is a likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the potential impact it could cause. All right. Okay, let's move forward, right? Let's quickly look at the knowledge check, right? First knowledge check. Which of the following best describes the principle of confidentiality in the context of information security? Ensuring that data is accurate and unaltered. Ensuring that authorized users have reliable and timely access to data and resources. Ensuring that sensitive information is accessible only to those authorized to access it. Or ensuring that data is available to the public at all times. Which of this describes confidentiality? Okay. Valentina says, I'll read all my PayPal emails, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. Anything related to financial or monetary, always pay extra care over there, right? Always pay extra care over there, right? With the emails and anything. Okay. It's deceptive, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. C, right? C. Okay, C is correct, right? Ensuring that sensitive information is accessible only to those who are authorized to access it, right? That is confidentiality. Okay, absolutely correct, right? Absolutely correct. Okay, look at question number two. Which scenario best illustrates a breach of data integrity, right? Breach of data integrity. An unauthorized user accessing confidential data, an authorized user being unable to access needed data due to server outage, sensitive data being encrypted to prevent unauthorized access, or data being altered or tampered with by unauthorized user. Which of these do you think is breach of data integrity, right? D, right? I see D, D, everyone saying D, right? Absolutely correct, right? D is correct, right? D is correct. Data being altered or tampered with by unauthorized user, right? That is breach of data integrity. Absolutely correct, right? Well done, right? Well done. Okay. Which of the following best describes the process of authentication in the AAA framework? Okay, in the AAA framework, which describes the authentication. Okay, determining what resources a user is permitted to access. Okay, tracking and logging user activities and access to resources, verifying the identity of a user, device, or entity, ensuring that data remains accurate and unaltered during transmission. Okay, which of these do you think is the uh, authentication in AAA framework? Okay, Omri says C, right? Susan says C. Others, what do you think? A, B, C, D, right? Authentication, right? We want to authenticate ourselves, right? We want authentication. Okay. So determining what resources is the user permitted to access, is that authentication? Or tracking and logging the user's activity, is that authentication? Or verifying the identity of a user, device, or entity, is that authentication? Or ensuring that data remains accurate and unaltered? C, right? BB says C, Omri says, Susan says C, right? Absolutely, C is correct, right? You're verifying the identity of a user or device or entity, right? So anyone, it's not necessarily only a user, right? A device could also be trying to connect to another device, right? So that is also possible. It's also authentication. All right. So yeah, absolutely correct. C was correct. Okay. Let's move forward, right? Let's move forward and yeah. So now we have some security controls and best practices, right? Security controls and best practices. Uh, in security controls, you have some categories, right? So there are some categories, and these are technical, managerial, operational, physical. Okay. Now, what are these categories? So security is not always about technical. Okay. So when you think about cyber security, you always think about antiviruses or the scripts or to put in code in place so that malicious attackers are not able to come in and gain unauthorized access, right? So you always think in terms of technical. Okay, but there are more categories, right? It's not just about technical. See, technical is where when you implement it using technology, often software based solution to protect the data and to manage access, right? So whatever we've talked about so far is you're trying to access some data, and who is authenticated, right? Who's authorized to see what, right? So those are all technical. Okay, but when it says write passwords in desktop notes, yeah, that's not a good idea, right, Valentina? Don't write passwords in desktop notes. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So technical, right? So far we've dealt with technical, but there are other categories also, right? There are managerial, there are operational, there are physical. Okay. So what is managerial? It involves administrative actions and decisions, managing internal processes and policies. Okay. For example, security policies or risk assessments, training programs, and personal security, right? So security policies, right? You need to have some policies in place that uh, for example, let's say our organization has these policies in place, right, for security. Okay, so we will follow these policies. Or doing some risk assessments, right? Anytime you have risk assessments, all managerial, right? Training programs, right, to make awareness or have an awareness for people, right? And personal security. Okay, so technical was what? Technical example was firewalls, right? Having encryptions, having antivirus softwares, and intrusion detection systems, right? So all technical. Okay, then you have managerial, right? Administrative actions. Then you have operational. What are operational? It's implemented by people, right? Involving day to day and procedures and practices for security, right? Change, for example, let's say the change management or data backup, right? So daily you need to back up some data. Okay, so once the website becomes huge, right? Or let's say your organization has some lot of data, right? So daily backing up of the data, right? So that is operational, right? It's operational. It's not automated, is it's not technical, right? It's you have to physically take backup of the data, right? So that is operational. Okay, physical, right? Tangible measures to protect facilities, hardware, and physical assets from unauthorized access, right? So physical is also a category of securing, right? Physical security. We'll delve into each of these, right? We'll delve into the depths of each of these, right? We'll go into more details of each of these categories. Okay, but right now understand these are the broad categories, right? These are the broad categories, and technical is not the only category that you have, right? When you're looking from security perspective. Okay, and there are different types, right? Security control types. You have preventive. Okay, preventive means what? It's preventing security incidents before they occur, right? Like for example, access control systems, security training, antivirus softwares, right? These are all preventive. Okay, deterrent is what? Discourage security violations. Okay, so for example, you have security signage, right? Have a big signboard, right? So security, or visible surveillance cameras, right? Big surveillance cameras which are visible, or you write that you are under CCTV surveillance. Okay, and security awareness. Okay, so all these will deter any malicious attacker that is trying to come in. Okay, detective is detect and identify security breaches that may occur. Okay, corrective, right? Corrective is what? Correct and restore the systems after a security breach has been done, right? So you can patch management, incident response plans, or system backups. Okay, similarly, compensating, right? Provide alternatives when existing controls are not feasible or effective. And directive, it's direct, confine, or control actions of individuals. Okay, comparison and contrast, right? Categories versus types. Now these are categories, and above were the categories, right? We'll dive deeper into each of these categories, right? So these were your categories, these different categories: technical, managerial, operational, and physical. And these are your types, right? These are the security types. Okay, now they are mostly overlapping, right? They're mostly overlapping. Like control categories are about the nature or domain of the control, technical or managerial, whereas control types refer to the function or purpose of the control, right? Let's say it's preventive or it's detective, so what type of it is it? Okay, and it's generally overlapping, right? It's generally overlapping and integrating. Okay, so often controls from different categories and types will overlap with each other, and they work in conjunction to create a comprehensive security posture. All right, so they generally overlap, right? The types and the categories, they overlap. Okay, and context specific application, the effectiveness of a particular control category or type depends on the specific context and needs of the organization. For instance, a high security facility might emphasize physical controls while data centric company might not prioritize technical controls. Okay, don't worry. Now let's look into the details of these types, right? Let's look at each of these categories, right? Let's look at the categories one by one. Okay, when it says borrows someone else's password, right? Oh, okay. When you write your password in your desktop notes, right, and you borrow someone else's, right? Yeah. That could be risky, right? Absolutely correct. All right. Okay. Yeah. Technical controls, right? So first is technical, right? So technical is mostly when you hear about cyber security and security, like initially also when I asked in the beginning of this lesson about what you think about cyber security, it is all from technical perspective, right? Building antivirus, securing the data, right? It's all from technical perspective, right? Those are technical controls, right? So that is one category, right? Definitely technical controls is one category, but it's not the only one. So technical controls involves what? It involves technical security controls measures implemented within the hardware or software systems to mitigate vulnerabilities and protect against various cyber threats. These controls use logic or algorithms or basically code or software based solutions to enforce security policies or monitor activities and prevent or detect unauthorized access or malicious activities. Okay, definition is what? It's known as logical controls, right? Security measures that are implemented and enforced by technology. So whenever using implementation and you're enforcing security measures using technology, for example antivirus, right? Or let's say you're writing some code or some Java programs to enforce the security, right? That is technical, right? All those are technical parts. Okay, for example, the purpose is what? The primary goal of technical controls is to defend against unauthorized access and cyber threats to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. Okay, key components. What are the key components? You have the firewalls, right? Firewalls, you must have seen in your machines, right? Firewalls are basically some set of controls, right? There's some set of controls. It's like a guard of a network, right? So it guards the network traffic. Okay, and allows only traffic which are trusted and that you have allowed, right? So firewall will block other traffics, right? So that is what a firewall is. Okay, encryption is what? Encryption is when you send in, let's say let's say I'm signing up on facebook.com, right, with my password. Okay, so when I sign up on facebook.com with my password will not be saved as plain text, right? It will not be saved as plain text. It will be encrypted. So there are encryption algorithms which will convert your text into some gibberish text, right? Let's say my password is, let's say, Harshit, right? So that password will be changed to, let's say, XY12347, some alphanumeric characters. Okay, so it has been encrypted into that. Okay, so that is what, like Valentina was saying, right? If you have your password in your desktop notes, okay, and anyone looks at your note, they know your password. Okay, but if you encrypt it and save it in your desktop notes, right, you encrypt it, so that encryption is there. It's alphanumeric gibberish characters. Okay, then no one can make use of it, right? Even if they look at it, it's not of use of it, right? Why? Because if they take that encrypted password, right, they take that encrypted password and they try to log in, right, because it's a one way, right? Once it's encrypted, you don't go back, right? It's a hashing technique. Okay, so now if you try to log in, right, you try to log in with that encrypted password, it will not log in. It will not log in. You have to give the original password. You take that original password, Facebook will encrypt it again and then compare with the encrypted one, right, whether it is correct or not. Okay, so unless you know how to decrypt that password, you cannot hack it. Right. So that is why encryption is very important, right? You must have seen WhatsApp also, right? You must have seen WhatsApp also. When you send in a message in WhatsApp, okay, now see that message is traversing through so much space, right? It's traversing through your Wi-Fi, right? First through your air. Okay, so first let's go through air, either from your Wi-Fi or from your cellular network, right? And from there it goes via wire, and then it goes to someone else's Wi-Fi, and then again it's in air, right? So whenever the data is in air, let's say I'm sending some message, right? It's in air, anyone can intercept it. It's actually interceptable. Okay, but even if someone intercepts, right, the point is, even if someone intercepts those messages, they'll not be able to read it. Why? Because it is encrypted, right? It's encrypted, and it's end-to-end encryption in WhatsApp. So I have encrypted, it will only be decrypted at the end of the person whom I have sent it to, so no one in between can read it, right? So no one can make out what I have sent, right? Any piece of text that I'm sending, they cannot make any sense out of it because encrypted. Okay, so that is encryption, right? That's encryption. Just want to tell you key component of technical controls, right? Antivirus and anti-malware softwares, right? Installing those is also a technical component. How you can Binu says except Lucy, right? Except Lucy, what is Lucy, Binu? I'm not sure if I know Lucy. Okay, movie, right? Okay. Is it about cybersecurity, right? I'll check it out, right? I'll check it out, right? Definitely, I'll check it out, right? If it's interesting, okay. I'll check it out. Okay, all right. Thank you, Binu. Right. So yeah, you have antivirus, anti-malware softwares, right? You have intrusion detection and prevention systems, right? So these are some systems. IDPS. It's a combination of preventive systems controls, right? And it monitors the network traffic, right? So whenever you have the traffic going on, it monitors the network traffic to identify any potential threats, right, and responds to them promptly. So that is what IPS is, right? Similar, but also acts as preventive control to block malicious traffic. Okay, secure configurations, right? Make sure configurations are secure. Involves securing system configuration and keeping the software systems up to date with the latest security patches. This prevents attackers from exploiting known vulnerabilities, right? And access control systems, and same thing, data loss prevention, DLP technology. So these are all different types of technical controls you can have in place. Okay, so these are the technical part, right? So when you have cybersecurity, it's in terms of as in terms of technical, right? So this is a technical category that we are dealing with, right? Benefits are what? Benefits are technical controls from the cornerstone of an organization's cybersecurity posture. They provide automated protection against a wide array of cyber threats and reduce the risk of data breaches and help maintain regulatory compliance, right? So that is your technical, right? Now you look at managerial, right? What is managerial controls? Okay, so managerial controls are high level security measures that focus on strategic planning and governance and oversight. Okay, so oversight of security policies and procedures. Okay, so the organization can have some security policies and procedures, right? How they want to plan it, right? How they want to overlook it, how they want to govern it, right? So those are managerial controls, right? They are established by senior management to ensure that security objectives align with the organization's overall goals and objectives. Okay, so definition is what? That management controls, often known as administrative controls, involve the management of organizations, people, processes, and policies to maintain a secure environment. These controls are focused on administrative activities that dictate the management execution of the security strategies. Okay, so purpose is what? The purpose is to ensure that organization security policies are being effectively implemented, right? That is the purpose of these uh, policies, right? That organized security policies are being effectively implemented. Okay, that's the managerial, right? It's managerial at the high level, right? What are the key components, right? What are the key components that are used in this? It's strategy focused, right? So these controls are about setting the direction and strategy of the organization. What is the strategy of our security, right? What direction are we moving in, right? So security policies and procedures, right? These documents are the foundation of an organization's security program and provide formal guidelines and rules of for how security is to be maintained, right? So they have these documents, right? That these are the policies, these are the procedures to be followed, and this is how the organization will maintain its security, right? So that is all managerial controls. Okay, risk management, right, involves identifying, assessing, and prioritizing risk, and how do you manage the risk, okay, followed by coordinated efforts to minimize, monitor, and control the impact of unfortunate events. All right. Security training and awareness programs, right? Like we did that this jigsaw puzzle, right? This phishing quiz. Similarly, managerial controls means they will make awareness programs, right, or security training, so that no one in the organization falls prey to an evil, or let's say phishing email, right? So when you do these security trainings, these awareness programs, those help in mitigating risk from these types of attacks, right? Let's say phishing emails or any other attacks, right? It helps mitigate that. Okay, so that is again a managerial control, right? Incident response and recovery planning, right? So in case of something has happened, right, some incident has happened, okay, then what are plans and procedures for responding to the security incidents effectively? Okay, it includes identifying what the incident was, containing the breach or eradicating the threat, and recovering from the incident, right? What are your plans and uh, procedures, right? Plans and procedures for responding to when some incident has happened. Okay, and then your vendor and third party management, right? So oftentimes in your organization, what you have, everything you don't do yourself, right? So something is exported to the third party, right? Or you have your vendors, okay, which provide you with something. So it involves ensuring that external partners and service provider comply with the organization's security standards, right? So to mitigate the risk they may pose. So the vendor might have some vulnerability, right, and that might expose the organization's assets also, right? So for example, the organization's data can be accessed how from the vendor, right, or from the third party management. Okay, so that is also an important, right? So that comes manager under managerial controls. Okay, compliance and auditing, right? Maintaining a program of regular assessments and audits, right? So it's always part of the managerial control, right? You audit, right? You comply, and you check your compliant, and you change your security policies accordingly, right? You look at what your standards and legal regulations are, so accordingly you keep changing, right? That is your managerial controls. What are the benefits, right? Managerial controls play a crucial role in creating a secure organizational culture. They provide the framework and guidance needed to implement and enforce technical and operational controls. Additionally, they help manage and mitigate risks, ensure legal and regulatory compliance, and guide the organization's strategic security direction. Okay, so those are managerial controls, right? So we are looking at the different types, right? We're looking at the different types. First was the technical, then was managerial. So when you look at cybersecurity, you look at all these types, right? These are all these categories, okay? All these categories, not exactly types, these are categories. Okay, so third one you have is the operational controls, right? Operational controls. And what are operational controls? Operational controls are detailed procedures and practices implemented to support and enforce security policies established by the management. Okay, they are the day-to-day activities and process designed to implement, monitor, and maintain security measures. All right, so earlier one was the managerial, right? Those are planning and making the documents, right, making the policies. Okay, now the operational is the day-to-day activity, like you take backup of the data. Okay, so the actual implementation, right, you monitor, right, you maintain the security measures. Okay, it's the day-to-day activities, right? Those are the operational activity, right? So that is the operational control. Definition is what? In cybersecurity, it refers to the procedures and practice executed by the people, right? So you're executing it. So execution by the people. Managerial was making the policies and making the documentation, right? Operational is the execution, right? Execution by the people as opposed to automated systems or policies. Okay, so the other one was systems and policies. Here you have execution by the people. Okay, to maintain and enhance the security of an organization. That is operational. Operational controls are often confused with managerial controls. However, they have key differences. What are the key differences? Operational controls involve the practical implementation of security measures, right? The practical implementation, the operations, right? You're doing some operation. Okay. Whereas managerial controls involve the overreaching strategy, right? And the administration of an organization security program, right? It's more administrative that we have these policies or we need to do this, right? We need to do this. But the actual execution is the operational controls. Okay. The purpose is what? The purpose is of operation control is to ensure that day-to-day operations of an organization align with its overall security strategy, right? Aligns with the security strategy. They are designed to mitigate risk through regular routine activities and actions carried out by staff members. These controls are essential in bridging the gap between strategic security policies. Okay, those policies are the managerial controls, right? And the technical safeguards is the technical controls. Okay, what are the key components that you use here, right? It's action oriented. These controls are about doing, right? Like you're taking backup of the data. Okay, they're people driven, right? While they can be supported by technology, operation controls are primarily implemented by people, right? They actually do some things, right? Routine procedures, they include regular activities like monitoring the system, right? Whether the system is working correctly or not, right? Managing user access, right? Performing backups. Okay, so all these routine procedures. Change management, right? This involves overseeing and managing changes to the IT systems and infrastructure. Effective change management ensures that modifications like software updates, right? You need some configuration changes, you need some software updates, right? That has to be manually done, right? Right now, we're not talking about just a website, okay? Imagine as a system, right? An entire system of lots of machines are there and lots of systems are there, okay? So updating softwares of a particular machine or updating the configuration of another machine, right? All those have to be manually done. Those are operational controls. Okay, like data backup and recovery, right? Regularly backing up the data is crucial for ensuring that critical information can be recovered in the event of a data loss, right? So regularly you have to take backups, right? And if let's say tomorrow data is lost or corrupted, right? So you can always come back, right? So that is data backup and recovery. It has to be done physically. Okay, physical security management, right? While classified under operational controls, this involves securing that physical access to sensitive areas like data centers is strictly controlled and monitored. For example, there's a data center, right? Now we don't want, although our security is in place, right? We can have include security guards, okay, or access control systems or surveillance measures, right, over our data centers so that the physical data center stays secure, right? So that is again operational because you have physical people, right? Your physical guards, okay? Those are or operational controls. Okay, you have security incident response handling, right? This involves having a set of procedure for responding to security incidents, right? So if let's say something has happened or if something has been detected, right, then what do you do? How do you recover from it, right? And post incident activities, what do you do in case an incident has happened? Okay, so those are the security incident response handling. Then user and access management, right, ensures that employees have the appropriate level of access to systems and data, includes managing user accounts and permissions, overseeing the provisioning and deprovisioning of access rights, right? So if let's say an employee has access to a particular building, right? So let's say organization has multiple buildings and or multiple floors, and particular user has that access to that floor or not, right, or to that building or not, right? So that is user and access management. Security awareness and training, right? Again, like I told you initially, this comes everywhere and very important to have security awareness and training. Vulnerability management and patching, okay? So regularly scan systems for vulnerabilities and apply the patches to mitigate the identified risks is crucial for protecting against known exploits, right? So again, this has to be physically done, right? A person has to do this. So again, that comes under operational controls. And lastly, it's the audit and monitoring. Continuously monitor the systems and networks for suspicious activities or any auditing security practices ensures compliance with policies and standards. Okay, so those are your audits and monitoring. So the point is operational is the day-to-day operation, right? Managerial was drafting the policies, right? What are the guidelines? And here you have day-to-day operations. What are the benefits of this? Operational controls are fundamental in realizing that practical application of security policies and effectiveness of technical controls, right? So the practical application, that the policies are being applied or not. Okay. In conclusion, management controls set the strategic direction and framework for security policies, while operational controls execute and enforce these policies on a day-to-day basis. Management controls set the strategic direction, right? So management controls are setting the strategic direction and framework, but operational controls execute them and they enforce them. Okay, that's the key difference. Both are integral in maintaining a robust security posture within an organization. All right, so that is the operational controls. Let me look at the live chat quickly. All right. Okay. Next, the physical control, right? This is the next category, physical controls. Okay. So far, what all you've done the technical, right? You've done the managerial, you've done the operational, and now you have the physical controls. What are physical controls? Physical controls are the physical devices, right? So now from software, you have hardwares also, right? So physical controls are the tangible and concrete measures we take to protect our organization's facilities, right? This is a hardware and sensitive information from unauthorized physical access, damage, and environmental threats. Okay, what is the definition? Physical controls in cybersecurity refers to the tangible, concrete measures put in place to protect an organization facilities, hardware, and other physical assets. Okay, what is the purpose? The primary aim of physical control is to prevent direct physical access to sensitive areas and assets such as data centers, server rooms, network hardwares. Okay, these controls are vital for preventing damage to or theft of physical devices and for ensuring that physical components of an organization IT infrastructure are secure from both internal and external threats. Okay, what are the key components that we use here? Access control systems. Okay, so there are some systems in place. For example, key cards, right? So there are some cards or biometric scanners. Okay, using your card or only from biometric scanner, let's say your fingerprint, right, or your face. Okay, or from pin codes. Only these will allow you access, and so that only authorized person, right? Only authorized person have access to the particular, let's say, floor or the particular room, right? So access control systems are in place. Surveillance cameras, right? CCTV cameras or other surveillance systems are put in place. Okay, security guards, right? Security guards or human surveillance to see whether everything is going smoothly or if there's any issue somewhere, right? They can monitor, right? They can monitor the access points. So those are the security guards, right? And you have environmental controls. They include fire suspension systems or HVAC systems for temperature and humidity control, protection against water damage, right? So those are all environment controls. Then you have barricades or physical barriers, right? For example, you can put in fences or gates, or you can put in locks. Safes are used to create physical barriers to sensitive areas and assets. Okay, you can have secure disposal or destruction of sensitive materials, right? So securely disposing of or destroying of sensitive materials, right? So when you don't need a particular sensitive material or you want to dispose them off, you dispose them off securely, right? So procedures for secure disposal of sensitive documents, electronic devices, and media prevent unauthorized individuals from accessing sensitive information, right? Because if let's say you have a device, right, or any let's say any particular machine, right, which has some sensitive information, and if you just dispose it off like that, right, and tomorrow someone gains access to it, they can extract data from it, right? They can extract information from it which might be sensitive. Okay, so you want to dispose it off securely, right? You want to destroy it securely. Okay, then emergency response and recovery plans, right, like we talked about in the earlier categories. What is the response and recovery plan, right? So once something is in place or some incident happens, such as fires or floods or other natural disasters, what is the process in place, right? What is your emergency response? Okay, so all these are physical controls, right? All these come under physical controls. What are the benefits? Physical controls are indispensable part of a comprehensive security strategy, right? While cybersecurity often focus on digital threats, physical security is equally important. So when you think of cybersecurity, it's not just about digital threats. It's not just about digital threats, right? It's about physical security also, because if you've seen the movies, right, Mission Impossible, in many of the movies, how Tom Cruise actually physically gains access to server rooms, right, and implants something over there. Okay, so the physical, right, so those are the physical security, right, so the physical controls have to be in place. Okay, so from not just digital point of view, you need physical controls also, right? So all these categories, right, all these categories are there, right, all these categories are there that we discussed about. They are there, right, and you should look at them as a whole when you're looking at cybersecurity. Okay, and not just only the digital aspect of it. That is the main point over here. Okay, what any questions, right, any questions so far? Let me look at the live chat. Any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions, right? Security best practices, right? So, what are some effective best practices in cybersecurity for implementing safeguarding digital assets and sensitive information and critical systems from multitude of evolving threats, right? So, some best practices that we have. Okay, one of the best practice is to have least privilege principle. Okay, what is the meaning of this least privilege principle? That means limit user access rights to only what is essential for their job. Okay, so it's a person A, right? Person A is working on certain things, right? So he or she should have access to only those parts of the data which is required for their job, right? So let's say there's someone is doing data analysis, right? So they don't need passwords, right? They don't need access to passwords or sensitive information of users, right? Or let's say the credit card details or any other sensitive information that I have, because they're doing data analysis, right? They just want to analyze what users are doing on my website, right? And which kind of users are more likely to buy from my website. Okay, so it's data analysis part, right? So you want to limit, right? That's known as least privilege principle. So a particular user should have only that much access which is required for their job, right? Nothing more, right? Nothing more, nothing less. All right. Strong authentication methods. Implement multiple factor authentication, MFA, or biometric authentication, right? So the strong authentication methods. Okay, these are best practices, right, that you should use. Regular software updates and patch management, right? You should keep the systems and softwares and applications up to date with security patches. Okay, because companies often release patches, right? So let's say if we are working on Chrome browser, right? Google will occasionally release updates, right, and some patches. So therefore you should have updated Chrome browser or updated your softwares to have that patch, right? Otherwise you are vulnerable to attacks. Okay, secure configuration and hardening, right? Configure systems and network devices securely based on industry best practices. Okay, use secure coding practices, right? So when you're implementing some code or you're writing codes, you make use of secure coding practices. Okay, data classification and handling. Classify data based on sensitive and implement appropriate security controls. It should not be that when you're collecting data or you're saving data, everything is in one place, right? Classify them. What is sensitive and what is not sensitive, right? So classify them accordingly and have more security in place for sensitive data. Again, incident response and planning. It's how you respond to some incident, because it's not about if an incident will happen. You should always go from the lookout that when an incident will happen, right? When a breach happens, then what should we do? Okay, it should not be that if some incident happens, then what we'll do. Don't think of it like that, right? Look at it always as when an incident happens. Okay, because it's likely, something is likely to happen. Okay, so what is the response planning, right? Network segmentation. Divide the network into smaller segments to reduce the impact of breach and limit lateral movement of attackers. If I have a wide network, right, all interconnected with each other, so if one network is compromised, right, attacker gets into from one network, he can move into the second network, third network, fourth network, laterally he can move. Okay, so if I have segmented different networks, right, so one network is separate for let's say the implement of the machine parts, right? Second network is for the, let's say, the online part, right? The website part, right? And third network is for some other part, right? So like this, if network is segmented, what happens is even if one network is compromised, they might not be able to traverse to the next network, right? So then we can mitigate the loss. Okay, security awareness programs and trainings, right? Like we discussed earlier, educate employees on security threats, best practices, and their roles in maintaining the security. Regular security assessments and audits should also take place. Conduct regular assessments, audits to identify vulnerabilities and assess the effectiveness of security controls, right? So what security controls are in place, whether they are effective or not, right? So these are some security best practices that should be looked at an organization, and especially you should know from a software tester's perspective, because then you can do the testing accordingly, right? If you know that these are the best practices and these are different categories, then you can base your testing accordingly. All right. Okay, so with that, I'll stop here, right? I'll stop here for a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. And if you have any questions, meanwhile, post it in the live chat. I'll come back from the break and then we'll look at it. All right. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. And let me quickly share the screen, right? So we had discussed about the different categories of security, right? Now we have something known as zero trust, right? What is zero trust framework? It's again a framework in cybersecurity, and it basically challenges the basic traditional model of trusting entities inside and distrusting those outside a corporate network, right? So generally, when you have a network, let's say you are in an organization, right? So there's the network of computers. Now what happens is, uh, traditionally, right, traditionally what used to happen earlier was that any device inside the network is trusted, right, because it's inside the organization, right? So if you look at, I'll show you an image. Look at from this image, right? So what we have here, right, you look at this, these are two. So this is one network, right? This is one network, and this is the organization, because all these machines, right, all these devices that you see, they are inside the network. Okay, so initially what used to happen was, we used to implicitly trust these devices because they are inside our organization, right? So the internet, we used to have threat from outside, right? So any device trying to access anything from outside, we will have security in place, right? We will not trust them. Okay, but internal devices, right, internal devices, we will have an implicit trust, right, that those are the devices from inside the organization, so there's an implicit trust. Okay, but zero trust means what? Zero trust policy or zero trust framework says that you will not trust these devices also. Basically, no device is to be trusted. Okay, always check for authentication, even if the device is from inside the organization, outside, no matter from where it is. Always check for authentication. So zero trust defense focuses on resource protection, right? It will always protect. So this is also a no trust zone. Inside the network is also a no trust zone. Okay, so never trust, always verify first. So that essentially is what zero trust policy, right? So what you do is, in zero trust model, trust is never assumed, regardless of whether a user or system is inside or outside the corporate network perimeter. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of continuously verifying and validating the trustworthiness of users and devices. Okay, so the trust is never assumed, right? You always have to verify the identity. Okay, now what are the benefits, right? What are the benefits of having zero trust, right? See, one, you have enhanced security posture, right? So your security is enhanced, right? Because if you're assuming that threats can come from both inside and outside, so zero trust provides a more robust security posture. Why? Because earlier, if the internal devices were trusted, then then attack could come from inside also, right? And a malicious attacker could be from inside also. Okay, but zero trust then mitigates that. Okay, you have reduced attack surface, right? There's less place for the attackers to attack. Improved incident response, right? Because you are continuously monitoring, right? You're continuously monitoring, and real-time analysis enables quicker detection and response to security incidences. Okay, you have more adaptability to modern work environments. Okay, with this rise of remote work and cloud-based services, because now work from home and cloud-based services is on high, right? Zero trust is well suited to secure modern and dynamic business environments. And it's in compliance agreements, right? Zero trust framework often aligns with various regulatory compliance and requirements, helping organizations meet legal and industry standards. All right, so that is zero trust, right? That is zero trust. And now you have something known as risk mitigation. Okay, so when you're trying to mitigate risk, you have basically four strategies, right? There are four strategies that you have. You can either accept, you can avoid the risk, you can transfer the risk, or you can reduce the risk. Okay, so these are four ways how you can mitigate the risk. Acceptance is what? First is acceptance, right? Acceptance means what? It involves acknowledging the existence of a risk and choosing not to take any specific action to address it actively, right? So you're just accepting that yes, this risk is there, but I'll not do anything about it. Why? Because actually doing something about that risk might be more cost consuming, right? Might be more time consuming, or might have more cost associated with it as compared to just accepting it. Okay, so there are places where that happens, right? So that is known as acceptance. Okay, application, this strategy is suitable for risks that are low, right? So there are low impact risk. The risk is not that high, right? It's a low impact risk and low probability, right? The probability is low. Okay, but the cost or effort of mitigation, right? It outweighs the potential impact of the risk, right? So the cost or the effort you have to put the effort you have to put to mitigate the risk is far higher, right? It's far higher than what the risk actually is. Okay, so for example, let's say SpaceX, right? Elon Musk accepted the risk of failure in their early attempts at rocket launches. Musk openly acknowledged that failure was a potential outcome and accepted it as part of the learning process for advancing space technology, right? So that is acceptance. Second is you have avoidance, right? You avoid the risk entirely. Okay, so avoidance refers to eliminating the risk entirely by not engaging in the activity or situation that could lead to that risk, right? So you're entirely avoiding that activity which could lead to that risk. Okay, application, this strategy is adopted when the identified risk poses a severe threat or when the cost of mitigation is unfeasible compared to the potential damage, right? It involves altering plans, procedures, or operations to circumvent the risk altogether. For example, right? For example, Apple's approach to protecting user data can be seen as a form of risk avoidance, right? How? By designing the systems with a focus on privacy and limiting the amount of user data stored on the servers. So they limit the data that they store on the servers, right? So they're avoiding the entire risk, right? So they're avoiding the entire risk of privacy, right? Uh, because if you're not saving much data on your server, then there's less chance, right? Less risk of data breach, right? So Apple reduces the risk associated with potential data breaches. They avoid certain risks by not storing extensive user data that might be vulnerable to hacking or misuse, right? So that is avoidance. Next thing you can do is transfer, right? Transfer involves shifting the risk to another third party, right? Or typically through contractual agreements or insurance or outsourcing, right? So you can have insurance or you can have outsourcing, right? For example, let's say Target Corporation experienced a massive data breach in 2013 that compromised the personal information of millions of customers. Target transferred some of the financial risk by utilizing insurance to cover a significant portion of the cost related to lawsuits, settlements, and other expenses resulting from the breach, right? Because you have insurances in place. So you're transferring the risk, right? So you have let's say some contractual agreements, or you're outsourcing, or you have insurance in place. Right? That is transferring. Okay. Fourth is reduction, right? Reduction is what it focuses on minimizing the impact or probability of a risk by implementing preventive measures or controls. So you are making preventive measures or controls to mitigate the risk, right? So this strategy involves actively mitigating the risk by implementing security controls, protocols, redundancies, or other measures. It aims to lower the likelihood of the risk occurring or decrease the severity of its impact if it does occur. For example, Google actively engages in risk reduction strategies, especially concerning cybersecurity. Google implements robust security measures such as encryption, regular security updates, employing security researchers to identify vulnerabilities. So these actions aim to reduce the risk of cyber attacks and data breaches across the platforms and services. So that is how you're trying to reduce the risk. Okay, so these are the four types of risk mitigations, right? And how you can do that, right? Knowledge check, right? Let's quickly look at knowledge check number two. Question number one, which of the following is an example of a technical control in information security? Technical control, right? We look at different categories. Which of these is technical control? Security training programs, data encryption, change management procedures, or security guards. Which of these do you think is the technical, right? It's technical control. Which of these will come under the technical category? Susan says data encryption. Others. See, which of these, right? Which of these comes under technical, right? It's the technical means uh, from your data perspective, right? From digital perspective. Okay. Ines says data encryption. Valentina says B, right? Data encryption is correct, right? Absolutely correct, right? You're encrypting data that is from technical control, right? It's technical control. Security training programs is not technical, right? Change manager process is again managerial, right? Security guards is physical, right? Question 2, which of the following best describes a managerial control in information security? Now, managerial control, okay? Implementing a firewall to protect network traffic, conducting regular risk assessments, or using locks and access control systems, or performing daily data backups. Which of these is managerial control? Which of these do you think is managerial control? Valentina says B. Okay, others. Susan says B, right? B is correct, right? Absolutely correct, right? You're conducting regular risk assessments, right? That is managerial, right? Managerial is absolutely correct, right? That is managerial. Question number 3, which of the following is an operational control, right? Operational control in the context of information security. Installing antivirus software, creating security policies, managing data backup procedures, employing security guards. Which of these is operational control? See, operational, what did I tell you? Operational is actually doing, right? Executing, okay? Actually physically doing, okay? So installing antivirus softwares, creating security policies, managing data backup procedures, or employing security guards. Which of these is operational? Omri says B. Omri, no, B is not correct, right? See, creating security policies is not operational, right? It's See, it's managerial, right? It's managerial. You're managing, right? You're creating the policies, right? Once the policy is in place, then that has to be followed. Okay. So you're creating the policies. That is managerial. Okay. Binu, C is correct, right? C should be correct, right? You're managing the data backup. Okay. Like I told you, daily you back up the data, right? You manage how the data is backed up, and how often you need to do that. That has to be done operationally, right? That is operational. All right. Okay. So moving forward, right? Moving forward, we have a case study, right? We have a very interesting case study that I want to spend some time on. Now look at this case study, right? So one compelling case study that encapsulates various security concepts is the Stuxnet worm attack on Iran's nuclear program. Okay, so what is Stuxnet? Stuxnet was a highly sophisticated computer worm discovered in 2010. Okay, it was specifically targeted supervisory control and data acquisition. Okay, it specifically targeted, right? Basically SCADA, right? SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition, okay, systems, which are used to control and monitor industrial processes, right? So these SCADA systems are used to monitor and control industrial processes, right? There are many industrial machines, and it's used to control them. It was, so the worm, right? The Stuxnet, what was Stuxnet was the worm, right? It was designed to sabotage Iran's nuclear program, reportedly slowing down the development of the uranium enrichment facilities. Okay, so what the Stuxnet worm attack did, it's coming from the attacker, right? Goes to all the systems, and it was targeting the SCADA, right? It was targeting the supervisory control and data acquisition systems, which are controlling the industrial processes. Okay, so what happened, right? Stuxnet targeted Siemens industrial control systems, specifically those used in Iran's Natanz nuclear facilities. Okay, so the system, Siemens industrial control systems used in that nuclear facility, was specifically targeted. Basically, it exploited multiple zero-day vulnerabilities. What are zero-day vulnerabilities? By the way, zero-day vulnerabilities are those vulnerabilities which are all existing, right? Like let's say if I am the developer of a website, and I have already launched my website, and there's a vulnerability over there. So I have 0 day to patch it up, right? It's a vulnerability today, right? Anyone can breach data, or anyone can breach my website from that vulnerability today, right? So I have 0 day to respond back, right? So that is a 0 day vulnerability. So it exploited multiple 0 day vulnerabilities, infecting systems via USB drives and exploiting flaws in Windows operating systems. Once inside the network, it sought out specific equipment and manipulated its operations, causing centrifuges to malfunctions. What are centrifuges? Centrifuges are systems that enrich the uranium, okay? So causing them to malfunction. SCADA is what? SCADA, like I told you, is the supervisory control data acquisition system, right? It's the entire system architecture comprising of computers, network data communications, and graphical user interface for high-level supervision of the machines and processes, right? So you can imagine a nuclear facility, you have some high-level machines and processes going on, and to control all that, right? To control all that, you have this SCADA, right? Supervisory control and data acquisition system, right? The entire system is there. It also covers sensors and other devices such as programmable logic controllers with interface and process plants or machinery, right? So everything that put together is the SCADA system. Okay, so Stuxnet was highly sophisticated in employing multiple techniques to remain undetected and to manipulate the industrial control systems without raising any suspicion. Okay, so it used the zero-day vulnerability, like I told you, and it was very sophisticated. What were some implications and lessons? So, Stuxnet was believed to be a collaborative effort between the United States and Israel, signifying the emergence of cyber warfare as a tool of geopolitical conflict. The attack highlighted the vulnerabilities of critical infrastructure to cyber threats, underscoring the need for robust security measures. Stuxnet's discovery raised questions about the reliance on security through obscurity, where systems assume safety due to being lesser known or proprietary, right? Because the systems were lesser known and no one really thought of that these could be attacked, right? So that is where it raised questions about the reliance on security through obscurity. Okay, so reliance of security through obscurity means what? Those systems are obscure, right? Like the nuclear facility would be in a very safe environment, right? It'll not be visible. It's obscure, right? It's very obscure. So therefore, they assume that since the entire facility is obscure, it's less likely to be attacked, right? Because it's separate and does not have much interaction. It's separate and physically secure. So therefore, it's less likely to be attacked, right? So it raised question about the reliance on security of those. Okay, so what was the global impact and ramification of this? The attack prompted a global shift in focus towards cybersecurity for critical infrastructure and industrial control systems. It also intensified discussions on the ethics and legality of nation states using cyber weapons against each other. In conclusion, the Stuxnet attack served as a pivotal case encompassing various security concepts, including cyber warfare, zero day exploits, vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure, the role of nation states in cyber conflict, and the need for enhanced cyber security measures. Okay, so this is the entire case study, right? This is the entire case study, and we'll do some questions on these, right? We'll do some questions on this case study. Is this case study clear, right? Is this case study clear? What is happening over here? What was it? What was attacked, right? What did Stuxnet specifically attack? So Stuxnet attacked what, right? Tell me in the live chat. What did Stuxnet target? Is this case study clear? Because we'll be doing some questions on this, right? We'll be doing some questions on this. So tell me if the case study is clear. What happened here, right? Basically, you have a worm, right? Stuxnet is what? It's a worm, right? What did it target, right? What did Stuxnet target? See, it targeted the Iran's nuclear facility, right? Iran's nuclear facility was targeted, but the SCADA system, right? SCADA is the entire system that you can think of, right? It's the supervisory control and data acquisition system, right? That's the entire system. Okay, when it is a Siemens industrial control system, right? Exactly, right, Valentina. Yeah. So the SCADA system was built by Siemens, right? It was built by Siemens, right? They had built this entire SCADA system for controlling the machines, right? Everything. So especially those used in Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, right? Absolutely, right? That's spot on, Valentina. That's spot on. Okay, so that is what was targeted, right? Now let's move to some questions, right? There are some questions. I've added this in the slides over here, right? So we can look at the questions over here. All right. So what was Stuxnet and why is it considered a significant cyber security event in history? Okay, so what was Stuxnet and why is it considered a significant cyber security event in history, right? Tell me in the live chat, right? Tell me in the live chat. What was Stuxnet in just one word, right? What was it? Was it a virus? What was it? And why is it considered a significant cyber security event, right? Why do you think it was a significant cyber security event? Give me your views, right? This is a case study, right? It's a case study. Now I want your views, right? I want your views in the live chat. What do you think about this? Valentin says Stuxnet was a highly sophisticated computer worm, right? Discovered in 2010. Absolutely, right, Valentina? That is correct, right? So Stuxnet was a highly sophisticated computer worm, right? It was not a simple worm that Morris had created earlier in 1988, right? If you remember, it was not a simple worm, right? It's a highly sophisticated and complicated worm. Okay, and why was it complicated? We'll come to that question. But why is it considered a significant cybersecurity event? Is significant because it utilized multiple zero-day vulnerabilities, previously unknown software vulnerability to infiltrate systems. Uh, yes, Valentina, you can, right? You can say that, right? You can see that, but that's the sophistication of it, right? Why it's special, okay? Why it's a special worm, right? We'll come to that question, okay? But why is the significant cybersecurity event? We'll look at that. Ines says worm to distort and stop or reduce Iran's nuclear program, right? Absolutely, Ines, that is absolutely correct. Binu says cause physical damage. Exactly, right, Binu? Yes, right. Yes, this was one of the first times, right? This was one of the first times where the target was actually a physical infrastructure. Okay, before that, the world had not seen that you can use cyber attack to damage a physical infrastructure. Okay, before that was only digital. Right, so digital, let's say the financial transactions or some digital files, you could corrupt some files, right? You could steal some files, so all that, right, was digital. Okay, but now it was first time that the world was seeing it in physically. Okay, so Stuxnet was a highly sophisticated computer worm, right? Its discovery raised questions about the reliance on security through obscurity, where systems assume safety due to being lesser known or proprietary, right? So physical infrastructures, right, which are obscure, physical infrastructure which are obscure, they thought that these are less, or they are less likely to be attacked. Okay, because a, they are physical infrastructure, and b, they are obscure, right? So they are less likely to be attacked. But it raised questions, right? So this is in history where the questions started to be raised about these systems, right? Uh, if something is obscure, does not mean it's secure. Okay, obscurity does not give you security, right? That question started coming in. Okay, so physical infrastructures, right, especially physical infrastructures like water facilities or other facilities, right? Physical facilities which are operated by these systems, right? With these SCADA systems. Okay, so those questions started being raised. That was the significance of this event. All right. Next question, right? How did Stuxnet differ from typical malware or computer viruses, right? So Valentina, your point can come in this question, right? So how did Stuxnet differ from typical malware or a computer virus, right? From a typical malware and a computer virus, how does this differ? Okay, so Valentin had already brought in that point, right? It utilized multiple zero-day vulnerabilities, right? Previously unknown software vulnerabilities to infiltrate the systems. Okay, what other points, right? What other points you can think of? How does Stuxnet differ from typical malware or computer virus? Well, he said, I didn't get the significance, right? Yes, yes, Valentina, correct, right? Yeah, significant part is it's not. See, the significance is because from that day in history, right? If you look at the history of 100 years or something, right? Or let's say last 50 years, right? If you look at the history, it's after this attack, right? It's after this attack in 2010 that we started questioning the security of physical infrastructures or physical machines that are controlled by SCADA systems. Okay, it was from that event, because from that we started to understand that a particular physical machine which is obscure is not secure, right? It's not safe, right? Could be damaged. So cybersecurity questions over there started raising, right? And then your security policies and everything started changing from there. Okay, so that is the significance of the event. Okay, and how is it sophisticated, or how did it differ from typical malware? That is correct, right? That is correct. It differed because the primary goal was physical destruction of real world equipment, while simply hiding its actions from human operators, right? So it was so sophisticated that it could hide its actions from human operators. Typical malware, in contrast, usually focuses on data theft or financial gain, okay, or general digital disruption, right? This was targeting physical harm, right, to physical sabotage. Okay, that was point number one, right? That was targeting physical harm, right? That's one point. Okay, it's highly specific target, right? It was highly specific in its target. Stuxnet was engineered to activate only if it found a very specific configuration of the Siemens supervisory control and data acquisition, okay, systems, and particular frequency converters used in the Natanz nuclear facilities. So if those conditions were not met, right, so the program is spreading, it's a worm, right, it's a worm, it's spreading, okay, but if these conditions are not matching, right, so let's say it comes to my system, right, so the Stuxnet worm comes to my system. Now it will check for these configuration, right, whether this particular frequency converters which are used in the Natanz nuclear facility, is it there in my system or not, right? Is this configuration, right, the specific configuration of this SCADA system by Siemens, is it there in my system or not, right? If those are not there, right, if those are not there, it will stay dormant, it will not do anything inside my machine, right, because that frequency is not, it's not detecting that frequency, it's not detecting that it's part of the SCADA system, it's not detecting all that, so it will not do anything in my machine. So it will not raise alarms, it will not raise suspicions, okay, because in those machines it's not doing anything, right, it's harmless, right, not doing any damage over there. But the moment it sees that a device has these traits, right, it has these configurations of the SCADA system, and the moment it notices that it has this frequency of Natanz nuclear facility, right, as soon as it notes that it has these frequencies, right, then it will activate, right, then it will activate. So it is targeting those machines, right, so sophisticated, it's targeting only those specific machines. Okay, typical malware, right, is generally indiscriminate. Typical malware is indiscriminate. It affects any vulnerable system, right, it affects any vulnerable systems, and it does not discriminate, right, it will not see that whether your system is a particular system or not, right, and other system is what system, it does not see that, right, just goes like what Morris did earlier, right, in 1988. It just spread across, it was indiscriminate. Okay, but here, right, was specific, right, highly specific target. Okay, and it also used specialized, right, these techniques, 0-day vulnerabilities, which were very specific, right, it was innovative vulnerabilities that it targeted. Okay, so those are the points, right. What specific industrial systems were targeted by Stuxnet and why were they significant? Okay, what specific industrial systems were targeted by Stuxnet, and why were they significant? Tell me, what do you think? Which specific industrial systems were targeted, right? It's a repetition, right? It's a repetition, right? SCADA, right? Valentina is correct, right? Absolutely correct, right? So the SCADA systems were targeted, right? Absolutely, right? So Stuxnet especially target the supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA systems, which are used to control and monitor the industrial processes, right? You monitoring the industrial processes, you're targeting those. Okay, so absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. Okay, why is the attribution of Stuxnet's creation challenging? Right? Why do you think the attribution of Stuxnet's creation is challenging? Means who created Stuxnet? Because after it was discovered and after everything came to light, whom do we blame? Right? Who created this? Who was it? Who was behind this? Why was it challenging? Attributing that this person has done, or this country has done, or this has done. Why is it challenging? Right? Why is the attribution? Why do you think it's challenging? When it says believed to be collaborative effort between the United States and Israel, right? Absolutely correct, right, Valentina? But it's believed, right? It's believed. Okay, you cannot attribute. You cannot attribute to them because it's believed. It's challenging, right? It's challenging to attribute, right? Why? Why is it challenging? That's the question, right? Why is it challenging? Venus is maybe not official confirmation, right? It's absolutely Bino, and you'll not have official confirmation, right? You'll not have official confirmation at all, right? So the attribution of the Stuxnet worm is challenging because of the inherent anonymity of cyberspace, right? Because cyberspace, right? It's not physical. You're not in real military is not going, right? You don't have any weapons or anything going, right? It's cyberspace, okay? So inherently, it's anonymous. The operational sophistication of the attack, right? The attack was so sophisticated and was designed to be obscure, right? It was designed to be obscure. Okay, so the creators designed it to be obscure from its origins. Okay, so it was so sophisticated, so obscure, right, and anonymous in cyberspace. So therefore, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to trace back and difficult to attribute to any particular place, right, from where it came, or who is responsible. Okay, so what were some unintended consequences or collateral damage caused by Stuxnet, right? I want to discuss this, but do you think any point of unintended consequences or any collateral damage that you can think which was caused by Stuxnet? Valentina says awareness, right? Absolutely, right? Absolutely correct, right? Awareness is one thing, right? Awareness is one thing that should absolutely be the consequence of it, right? Absolutely. Okay. But I'll discuss few more points on this, right? These are very, very important. Okay. So look at one, right? Accidental global spread. Okay. So although designed with safeguards to only attack a specific industrial configuration, right? So it was designed to only attack Siemens PLCs with particular frequency converter drives used in gas centrifuges. A programming error, right? So in an update. So later on, they sent in an update, and there was a programming error in that. Okay, much like how you saw in Morris's case earlier. Okay, so there was a programming error in that, and that caused the worm to spread more broadly to an engineer's internet connected computer and then to general computers worldwide. The worm was found on thousands of computers in countries including India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Australia, the United States, and the UK. So you see how it accidentally spread after an update. Okay, now compare this with the initial discussion that we had on Morris, and how unintentionally he had sent a worm which spread across. Same thing, right? Same thing. So accidental global spread, you cannot control. These are unintended consequences. Okay, and so it spread, right? Ultimately it spread. Okay, second thing is infection of non-targeted systems. The malware infected over 200,000 computers in total. While it became dormant if it didn't find the specific Siemens software and hardware configuration, it still resided on non-target systems, including an unconnected nuclear power plant in Russia. Though it caused no damage over there because it was targeting only the specific one, right? The specific frequency of Iran's nuclear site. But so in Russia, it didn't do anything, but it was there, right? It was there. So it was infected, right? Multiple systems were infected. So again, that was an unintended consequence. Creation of a cyber warfare blueprint, right? So Stuxnet's code, ultimately it was released, right? It was released, right? Once everyone was aware of it, it became public, right? The code became publicly available after its discovery, so allowing other groups and nations to study and repurpose its sophisticated techniques. This led to the development of other advanced malware, sometimes referred to as the sons of Stuxnet, including Duco in 2011, Flame in 2012, Havix in 2013, Indestroyer in 2016, Triton in 2017. These subsequent cyber weapons targeted other critical infrastructures like power grids, water treatment plants, safety systems. Right. So all these were consequences of that particular attack. So all this because it became a blueprint. Right now, you know what a blueprint is. Right. We did classes in Java. So Java class was a blueprint to create objects. Right. So this is what a blueprint. Right. So they got the blueprint from the code, and then they could change and make it more sophisticated, more targeted. Right. And lastly, you have the escalation of cyber arms race, right? The attack as the world's first known digital weapon to cause physical damage. It was the world's first known digital weapon to cause physical damage, demonstrated the potential for cyber operations to be used for physical sabotage. This forced nations worldwide to reassess the cybersecurity vulnerabilities and invest in both defensive and offensive cyber capabilities, accelerating a global cyber arms race because everyone then wanted to have the cyber weapons. Right. So that was the thing. Lastly, how was the discovery and analysis of Stuxnet influenced cybersecurity practices globally? How has the discovery influenced cybersecurity practices globally? Valentina says cyber attacks can be the next war, right? Absolutely, right? Absolutely, Valentina. That is what that was an unintentional consequence, right? After that, that came into the picture, right? And that race for arms, okay, in the space, cyber warfare. Bino says high cost to clean up, right? Absolutely, Bino. That is absolutely correct, right? There's high cost to clean up also, right? Absolutely correct. Okay, so how is the discovery and analysis influence the cybersecurity practices globally? It led to major shifts in national security policies, industry best practices, and international discourse on cyber warfare. Prioritization was given of critical infrastructure security, development of specialized defenses, and shift in national security strategies. Okay, so all these were the impact, right? All these were the impact of the influence of cybersecurity practice globally after discovery and analysis of Stuxnet. Okay, so these were the points, right? These were the points of the case study, right? So these are the questions that we discussed. Now that's the conclusion, right? What were the key takeaways? We did the CIA triad, we did the AAA frameworks, we did some security controls and how they can be used, right? Different categories and different types. All right. Okay. Now let's quickly move to Kahoot, right? Let's move to Kahoot. I will start the Kahoot and let's see how much you all have understood with this. And that case study, right? The case study, again, go back to it, right? Read through the case study, read through the questions, right? Go through the questions again, look at the answers and do that, right? Do that because it's very interesting, right? It's very interesting, very insightful. All right. Okay, let me quickly start this and you'll see the link, right? You'll see the link of Kahoot in your this and this is the pin, right? This is the pin 3834848, right? Join in, join in. Meanwhile, let me share the screen again with the sound, right? I'll need to share it with the sound as well. Okay. The sound is correct, right? Not too much. Okay, I'll just wait for 30 seconds, right? Quickly join in, quickly join in. We don't have much time, right? So quickly join in. Who's the defending champion, by the way, right? Who won the last Kahoot? And quickly join, right? Quickly joining, just waiting for 30 more seconds. Okay, if you have only three, right, they'll be the top three, right? They'll be the top three. Okay, quickly join in, right? Quickly join in. This one is going to be fun, right? This one's going to be fun. Very fun questions are there, right? Very fun questions, and it's not difficult, right? It's not difficult, right? It's all logical, right? You see this is logical. Okay, mine will be on the podium for sure, right? Not now, Valentina, right? Yeah, there are five, right? There are five. Okay, okay, just 10 seconds more, right? Just waiting for 10 seconds more, and then I'll start. Anyone, right? Join it because see, if you attempt these, right, you'll have more confidence attempting your ISTQB exams. Okay, because over there it's the certification is at stake. Okay, here nothing is at stake, right? So yeah. All right. Okay, I'm starting, right? Let's start. All right. Okay. Brace yourselves, right? Question number one, right? Question number one. Over your security testing. Let's look at question number one. Okay, which of the following is an example of a technical security control, right? Technical security control. Data backup procedures, security awareness training, security policies, or firewalls, right? Which of these is the technical security, right? So we had discussed the different categories, technical, managerial, operational, right? So which of these is technical? Data backup, security awareness, security policies, firewall, right? Absolutely correct, right? All of you all have got it correct. Absolutely correct, right? Well done, right? So firewalls is that, right? Let's see who is in lead. Okay, Dan is in lead, right? Susie and Valentina close behind, right? Great, awesome, right? Encryption is classified as which type of control? Encryption is which type of control? Is it detective, corrective, preventive, compensating, right? Which type of control is encryption? I talked to you about encryption and how we can encrypt data. Detective, corrective, preventive, or compensating, right? Which type of control is it? Right, absolutely right. Preventive, right? Absolutely correct. Preventive is correct. Absolutely. Most of you all have got it correct. Absolutely correct, right? Let's see. Dan is in the lead, right? Good lead, Dan. Susie and Valentina very close behind, right? Cyber security is also there. Okay, let's look at next question. Which AAA model element is upheld when a user is denied access to an admin only folder due to insufficient permissions? Auditing, authorization, authentication, or availability. Right? User is denied permission to an admin only folder. Okay, so auditing, authorization, authentication. Great, right? Okay, everyone's done it, right? Before time. Authorization, right? Absolutely correct, right? Well done, well done. This was before time. Okay, great job. Susie has the highest streak of 3, right? Great, well done, well done. Okay, Dan's still in the lead, right? Okay, all right. Susie and Valentina can catch up, right? You can catch up. All right, question number 4. A manufacturing company buys insurance for equipment failures to manage financial risk. Which risk strategy is this? A transfer, acceptance, avoidance, or reduction? Right, what type of risk mitigation strategy is this? You're taking insurance for equipment, you're transferring it, you're accepting the risk, you're avoiding it, or you're reducing it, right? What are you doing? uh, Only two people got it correct, right? See, you're transferring, we discussed about this, right? Risk mitigation strategies. Okay, when you're taking insurance, you're transferring half your risk to them, right? Like you saw that example, we saw that once the data was breached, and for the litigations and cases, right, they could use the money from the insurance. Okay, so you transfer, right? You transfer the risk. That is correct. Let's see who got this one, right? Who got this one? Oh, Dan was still in the lead, right? Dan is in a great lead. Okay, great. Well done. Tough round. 4 participants lost their answer streak, right? So that was a tough round. All right. Okay. Don't worry, right? Don't worry. We have several rounds more, right? Several rounds more, and you can catch up. Okay. A startup finds the cost of testing for minor software bugs too high compared to the risk. Which risk strategy is this? Reduction, transfer, acceptance, or avoidance, right? They're finding the cost is very high, right? Cost is very high for mitigating the risk, right? So acceptance, right? Very good, right? Very good. Acceptance is correct. Most of y'all have got it correct. They're accepting the risk, right? They're accepting the risk. And Valentina has come to second, right? Great. Well done, Valentina. Dan still in the lead. All right. Okay. Question 6, right? Look at this. Data backup procedures fall under which security control category? Data backup procedures. Is it physical? Is it technical? Is it operational? Is it managerial? Right? Data backup procedures is under what category? Physical, technical, operational, or managerial? Great, right? Most of y'all have got it correct, right? Absolutely, right? Oh, only one of y'all have got it correct. Oh, operation. See, it's operational, right? Managerial. Why do you think it's managerial? See, we talked about data backup. You have to physically back up the data. You have to physically take that, right? We discussed this many times. It's operational, right? It's operational. It's not managerial. You have to physically do that, right? Who got it right? Okay, Dan. Dan still got it right, right? Great. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Let's look at the next one. All right. If only authorized users can access a secure database, which principle of the CIA triad is being upheld? Only authorized users can access. Availability, authentication, integrity, or confidentiality. Which CIA triad is being upheld over here? Only authorized users can access the secure database. Which principle is being upheld? Authentication, confidentiality, integrity, availability. Great, right? Most of you have got correct. Confidentiality, right? Absolutely. How we discussed in the beginning, what is confidentiality, what is authentication, what is integrity. So absolutely correct, right? Absolutely correct. Okay. Dan still in the lead, right? Valentina close behind, and cybersecurity is now in third place. Okay. All right. All right. Question number 8. You can catch up. Okay. In a data breach caused by unpatched software, which element of risk threat vulnerability model is represented? Data breach caused by unpatched software. Is it a risk? Is it a vulnerability? Is it a threat? Is it integrity? Data breach caused by unpatched software. Is it risk? Is it vulnerability? Is it threat? Or is it integrity? Which of these is happening? Risk, threat, vulnerability. Vulnerability, right? Absolutely correct, right? Absolutely correct. It's a vulnerability, right? Absolutely correct. Great. Most of y'all have got it correct. Awesome, awesome, right? Dan's still in the lead, right? Valentina very close behind. Susie's also climbing, right? All right, okay. 9, question number 9. Which of the following is managerial control? Now, managerial control: antivirus software, risk assessments, intrusion detection system, patch management. Which of these is managerial control, right? Under the type of managerial control. Antivirus software, is that managerial? Is risk assessment managerial? Is intrusion detection system managerial? Right, great, right? Most of you have got it correct. Risk assessment, right? Absolutely. You assess the risk, right? And you make your security policies accordingly. That is absolutely managerial, right? Great. Let's look at the scores, right? Oh, very close, right? Valentina and Dan are very, very close. Last question, brace yourselves. Valentina has the highest streak of answer 5, right? Valentina on fire. All right, okay, let's see if you can take this one, Valentina. Last one, right? On your toes. And question number 10. Which zero trust principle limits user access rights to the minimum necessary for their roles? Verify identity, micro-segmentation, continuous monitoring, least privilege access. Which of these will minimize their access according to their roles, right? Verify identity, micro-segmentation, continuous monitoring, least privilege access. Which zero trust principle limits user access rights to specific, right? Great, most of you all got it correct. Least privileged access is correct, right? It does according to what your role is, limit your access according to your roles. Okay, so let's look at the podium. Let's look at the podium, and at number 3 we have cybersecurity, right? Great job, great job. Who's cybersecurity? Okay, Dan is second, so it's like Valentina has taken over, right? What a fight, Valentina. Well done, right? Well done. How